Hey guys, welcome to the last GOP debate, and I hope we can see it. I I thought it'd be public, and I think it will. I think CNN is not going to charge to watch the debate. I looked up various options, and you had to join like YouTube TV or some subscription. But I think they're going to show it real time without me having to sign up for a subscription service. I'm not going to do that. So the debate's going to be in about 12 minutes. Welcome, guys. We'll get through this together. And I want to thank you because without you, I don't think I could get through this debate. I don't really care about Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis. They don't put America first. They both have been very disappointing. I expected that from Nikki Haley, but Ron DeSantis has been disappointing too. The big news that came out, no pun intended, big. Chris Christie has dropped out of the race. So, yes, now there's finally an opening for Asa Hutchinson to make his move. He could get up to 1%. Now, Asa's still in the race, but he won't be on this debate. Chris Christie wasn't invited to the debate, and he has dropped out. Donald Trump is doing his own thing. He hasn't participated in these debates, which probably is just as well. So this is going to be a debate just between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. I imagine Nikki Haley is going to be, I'm a tough woman in heels. I'm the bitch you don't mess with. This is a problem a lot of women have when they get positions of power. They feel like they have to overcompensate because they're a woman, so they have to act tougher. I want a war with Russia and Iran and China, just crazy. So it'd be interesting to see if she tries to mellow that out a bit. And I would think both candidates, because I think they've already declared their allegiance to the people that really run things, the Israel. That they keep doing that. You would think they would, at least with the voters, try to get some of the Trump base and like pretend to care about America. So maybe this debate, they're going to try to act like they care about America instead of just Ukraine and Gaza. We will see. We will see. Last debate between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, when they were on stage together, they were accusing each other of not supporting something strong enough. And they would say, no, that's a lie. I did. So we might see some of that. So, guys, thank you for being here. As I said in the opening, okay, good. My feed is still alive with CNN, so I think this is going to happen. And as I said, I tweeted and I got a lot of people upset. I really don't think Trump's going to be the nominee. I said that in my predictions video, and just because I predict something doesn't mean I want that to happen. And back in 2020, after the election, I said, I don't think Trump's going to remain president. And everyone said, oh, you're a sellout. You're controlled opposition. And I'm like, no, I want him to remain. And a lot of strange things happen. But look who's controlling things. I don't think it's going to happen. And I proved to be right. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. If it's a fair election, Trump is going to steamroll at least a Republican nomination. But there's going to be shenanigans, especially when he's found guilty in these kangaroo courts that he's a part of right now, that the Biden administration, the one in Georgia, the insurrection court, the Biden administration has been working with that district attorney who has her own controversy because she's the guy prosecuting the case is her lover. He's married. And there's a lot of tax money going to him, and they've been enjoying vacations to the Caribbean. Typical African Republic shit we're in now. It's a mess, but there's no way Trump's not going to be found innocent or not guilty. He's not guilty, but it doesn't matter because there's going to be mostly blacks and Democrats on the jury. He doesn't have a chance. It's a joke. So once he's found guilty of insurrection, then they're going to make that as an excuse to kick him off. I think as a nominee. So you'll probably have your nominee will either be Haley or Ron DeSantis. Now, all the globalists have really circled the wagons around Nikki Haley. They like her. She's a woman of color. She hates historic America. She doesn't really care about free speech or our Constitution. And she even admitted she was inspired by Hillary Clinton. She didn't know if she should run as a Democrat or Republican. She's running as a Republican, but in no way is she conservative. She's an SJW, and she just happens to be in the Republican Party. So if Nikki Haley is a nominee, the Republicans could win. They really could, or she could win. Not that it makes a difference. Just I don't think the powers that be mind if Nikki Haley is president instead of that zombie Biden. Because who knows how long Biden's going to live, and I think they can control Nikki Haley. Now, Ron DeSantis, he's been signaling like, "Hey, I'm going to be a good boy. I'm going to be a good boy. You tell me what to do, and I'll do it." And he's really been that way, especially when it comes to foreign policy and Israel's interest. In fact, he just changed. He was just bragging about Florida is going to make it easier for Jewish students to transfer from Ivy League schools to Florida schools because Ivy League schools, they're like Auschwitz. They're run by Nazis. It's hilarious. They're all Jewish, these Ivy League schools. But in his fantasy world, oh, anti-Semitism. So and so it's identity politics. He doesn't care about like white kids. Say, hey, we're making it easier for white kids to transfer. No, he doesn't give a shit about that. So it's he's been horrible too. Both these candidates are horrible. I think Ron DeSantis is marginally better. If you put a gun to my head, I would rather support Ron DeSantis. There's no way in hell I'd vote Nikki Haley. Ron, I don't know. He's done some good stuff with the LGBTQ agenda, trying to push back on that in Florida. Obviously, he's going to put Israel first, but so is Nikki Haley. But to be fair, so Trump is a big Israel first guy too. So that's just it's people that control the country, so they just have to kneel to that. So you have to look at the other issues. My guy Vivek, he's not going to be part of this debate, so it's going to be very boring, I think. But we will get through that. Thank you for being here, by the way. If you have questions during the debate or something, just send a super chat or a rant or whatever, and we'll just interrupt the debate and we'll talk about it. And I will add my comments as it goes through. I don't want to interrupt too much, but I have a feeling it's going to be somewhat boring unless we make it fun. Um, because I already know all their positions. I think you do too. Nikki Haley again is going to put, "I'm a badass. You know, we got to go to war with Russia and Iran and everyone else." And DeSantis will basically say something like that. And who loves Israel the most? Who loves the Jewish people the most? I don't know if they're going to focus on that. You would think they would get a little pushback on that. They may need to pull off a little bit about that. But I'm not really sure. We will have to see. And so we'll try to get through this, and hopefully it's not too boring. Um, so yeah, Chris Christie dropped out. He was never a serious candidate. He was just in the nomination process to badmouth Trump. He's real butthurt about Trump. His whole campaign wasn't his vision. He didn't have a vision. He was just, I hate Trump. I hate Trump. That was his whole point. So he really didn't have a position. And although really Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, I'm not sure how much they disagree with each other. Nikki Haley did say she wants to make it illegal for you to be anonymous on the internet. She said that. She's, I think, a little bit more aggressive, and she wants to go to war with the world, with China, with Russia, with God knows who else, Iran. So she would definitely be. We could have World War III with her. She's really hyping that up. And so we will have to see how that plays out. So, guys, thank you for being here. We'll get through this tonight. I like doing these debates with you guys because we can kind of go through it, just take a look about it. And so the debate starts in 13. Is that 13 minutes? Yeah, it says 13 minutes and 38 seconds. I thought it started at 8 o'clock, but I guess not. And they are saying Christie suspense campaign captured on hot mic, saying Haley's going to get smoked. We will have to see about that. Iowa, in case you don't know our system, is one of the early states. Then we have New Hampshire. Both Iowa and New Hampshire are kind of they're each different. New Hampshire is in New England. It's a different vibe than Iowa. Iowa is always seen as kind of middle America, not real radical right or left. So it's sort of a bellwether about could happen. And the amount of votes they have for the primary is not that high, neither is New Hampshire. So it's not that important, but it can give some momentum. In a lot of previous primaries throughout our history, sometimes the candidate will do really well in Iowa. And I think Bernie did really well in New Hampshire, and it gets the media excited. But then you have Super Tuesday, which is in March. That's when most of the states vote. And that's really the key development. It's kind of funny because that is when Super Tuesday happens. I think that's when Trump is scheduled for his kangaroo court down in Georgia. So he could win the nomination when he's on trial or he's actually convicted. So it's going to be a really wild time. And I don't know how much we're going to be able to talk about this on YouTube going forward. YouTube sent a note out to everyone. I got it that they have this new thing called sensitive event. And when there's a sensitive event, whatever the hell that means, you got to talk to it in an ADL approved talking point. So the censorship with YouTube is really doubling down, and we're going to see that big time. So this is key though, because if Trump is removed, it probably will be DeSantis or Haley as the nominee. I would think more people would prefer Haley. So the big question is, if Trump gets removed, what happens to his delegates? Do they get to choose someone else, or does it go to the party? That we're in new territory. I'm not really sure. I think the candidates now, what they need to do is position themselves to try to appeal to the Trump voters. And I think a smart strategy, and these people aren't really that smart, would be to be opposed to Trump being removed, at least officially. Behind the scenes, they're hoping for it, and say, "Oh, it's horrible." But I wish Trump was here, but because he's unfairly kicked out, I will carry on the mantle of the Trump legacy. I think that would be effective, but I don't think they will do that. But they somehow got to appeal to the Trump voters. Well, maybe they don't. Maybe the party officials will pick the nominee. But I think DeSantis has a little better chance than Haley. But I don't know. DeSantis and Trump have been going back and forth. They seem to hate each other. So I'm not really quite sure if that will be the case either. Let's see here. So, here it says we're going in 35 seconds. Let me see if I can share the screen here and we can watch this. And hopefully they'll keep us up. Here we go.
We are just minutes or seconds away. Abby Phillip, thank you. David Axelrod, thank you as well. The two candidates are backstage. They will be coming out momentarily. Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis is their final debate before the Iowa.
Yeah, and I don't know if the debates really. I don't. This guy is a. I won't say anything. I'm on YouTube. Yeah. Will this debate really make a difference? I don't know. I don't know how many people are really going to watch it. I don't know how many people will change their minds, but it is interesting to see their position. And again, all the neocons, the globalists, they are really pushing DeSantis. I'm not DeSantis, Haley. Although DeSantis, he's trying to pivot like, hey, I can be a good neocon too. So we will see.
And around the world watching us on CNN, CNN Max, CNN International, CNN en Espanol, and CNN.com. Good evening. I'm Jake Tapper, moderating tonight's debate alongside my friend and colleague, Dana Bash.
And just 5 days from now, voters here in Iowa will cast the first votes of the 2024 presidential race. Tonight, the very first one-on-one matchup between top contenders, Governor Ron DeSantis.
they're not really top contenders. They're way behind Trump. So this is to see who comes in second place. So, but they'll make a big to-do about it. It is important both for DeSantis and Haley to try to get the momentum to say, hey, I'm going to be the candidate after they kick out Trump.
Topics, we focused on the issues important to Republicans. Let's bring out the candidates now. Please welcome Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
He's got that red tie on. It's a power tie. They taught us that in the 80s. At least he's got an American lapel pin, not an Israeli pin. And there's Nikki Haley, Nimrata.
Candidates, please take your positions behind the podiums while we remind you and our audience of the ground rules. Each of you will have 90 seconds to answer questions, 60 seconds for responses and rebuttals, and 15 seconds for clarifications. Timing lights will remind you when time is expiring.
We also remind our audience here in the Sheslow Auditorium at Drake University to be respectful so the candidates can hear the questions and can hear each other.
Just hours ago, the Republican field narrowed once again. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie ended his bid for the presidency.
That man is out.
With one fewer candidate in the running, let's start with the decision voters here in Iowa are about to face. Governor DeSantis, why should voters who are looking for an alternative to the current frontrunner, former President Trump, vote for you rather than former Governor Haley?
Well, to the people of Iowa, good evening. It's great to be in Iowa to have a debate here. Donald Trump's running to pursue his issues. Nikki Haley's running to pursue her donors' issues. I'm running to pursue your issues and your family's issues and to turn this country around. I'm the only one running that's delivered on 100% of the promises that I've made. We've delivered huge victories in the state of Florida, things that Republicans have been asking for a generation. I'm also the only one running that has beaten the left time and time again. We beat the teachers union on universal school choice. We beat Soros on crime. We beat Fauci on COVID. We beat the Dems on election integrity. And I beat the left by banning China from buying land in the state of Florida. Now, Nikki Haley is running. We don't need another mealy-mouthed politician who just tells you what she thinks you want to hear just to try to get your vote, then to get in office and to do her donors' bidding. She was in another state and she said the people of Iowa's votes need to be corrected. This is somebody that wrote in her book that Hillary Clinton inspired her to first run for office. I remember Hillary denigrating people on the Republican side as deplorables. We don't need a candidate who's going to look down on middle America. We've had enough of that. I'm the only one that's going to be able to lead this country's revival. I'm asking for your support and I won't let you down.
Governor Haley, a response?
Well, I think this is a time that we know that we need a new generational leader. We have watched our country be in disarray. We see the world on fire, and we need someone who's had executive experience. I've been a two-term governor that took a double-digit unemployment state and turned it into an economic powerhouse. I was at the UN. I dealt with Russia, China, Iran every day. But you're going to find out tonight that there's going to be a lot of Ron's lies that have happened. There are at least a couple of dozen so far that he's done. So what we're going to do is rather than have him go and tell you all these lies, you can go to DeSantisLies.com and look at all of those. There's at least 24 lies that he's told about me, and you can see where fact checkers say exactly what's going to happen and exactly why it's wrong. So it will cover the fact that he's only mad about the donors because the donors used to be with him, but they're no longer with him now. And that's because he's upset about the fact that his campaign is.
I think that's good they're no longer with him. I mean, that makes him more popular for me.
Multiple times, and we'll call that out tonight. But every time he lies, Drake University, don't turn this into a drinking game because you will be overserved by the end of the night.
Well, I think this is interesting because you can actually go to RonDeSantis.com because Nikki Haley has this tactic. If you hold her accountable to her record, first she'll say, I never said that. Well, one good rule of thumb, if she says she's never said something, that definitely means she said it. And then she'll say, you're lying, you're lying. That means not only did she say it, but she's on videotape saying it. And so we have all the greatest hits. The reality is Nikki Haley is not somebody that has been willing to stand in and fight on behalf of conservatives. You know, she ran for governor saying she was going to do universal school choice, and she caved to the teachers union. She didn't deliver that. In Florida, I delivered the largest expansion of school choice in the history of the United States. I beat the teachers union. And you know what the results are? When she was governor of South Carolina, she was rated 50th in education, dead last. You know where Florida is under my watch? #1 in the nation.
Your response, Governor Haley?
Go to DeSantisLies.com and you can find out for yourself. But
That's not a good response. Go to the website and see my response. That's pretty
in Florida,
weak.
he said that he promised not to raise the debt limit when he got to D.C. Yet he raised the debt limit by hundreds of billions of dollars. He used to
This is real boring. I don't really care. Politicians lie. I get that. I just want to know their vision. They're not really talking about their vision. They're just calling each other a liar. Well, they're politicians. Of course they're liars.
He wants to talk about me insulting Iowans. Iowans know when you're telling a joke. The fact that he's only running in one state is not the way you win president. I'm running in all states. But he should tell Iowans why he authored legislation to ban the renewable fuel standard that's so important to Iowans' economy, and the fact that he co-sponsored 5 different pieces of legislation to get rid of it. And also, then he also said he would never do anything with Social Security. Yet he voted 3 times to raise the retirement age of Social Security. So if you're going to talk about what you said,
But she supports that too. So again, they're just throwing dirt. They're not showing their vision.
We're going to get to a lot of these issues in the debate. Governor Haley, when Governor Christie dropped out of the race just a few hours ago, he said the most important issue is, quote, the character of the candidate. Governor Christie also said he ran because he knew he would be the only Republican candidate to speak the truth about former President Donald Trump. Do you believe Donald Trump has the character to be president again?
Well, I think the next president needs to have moral clarity. I think you need to have moral clarity to understand that it's taxpayer money, not your own money. I think you need to have more
She's not answering the question directly.
dictators in the world, that we always have to fight for democracies and human rights and protecting Americans and preventing war.
Answer the
And so when you
question,
look at
Nimrata.
Donald Trump, I have said, I think he was the right president at the right time. I agree with a lot of his policies, but his way is not my way. I don't have vengeance. I don't have vendettas. I don't take things personally. For me, it's very much about no drama, no whining, and getting results and getting them done. So I don't think that President Trump is the right president to go forward. I think it's time for a new generational leader that's going to go and make America proud again. That's what I'm going to try and do.
Governor DeSantis, what is your response to Chris Christie? Do you believe Donald Trump has the character to be president again?
Well, I'm running because I'm the guy that's going to be able to engineer a comeback for this country. I appreciated what President Trump did, but let's just be honest. He said he was going to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. He did not deliver that. He said he was going to drain the swamp. He did not deliver that. He said he was going to hold Hillary accountable, and he let her off the hook. He said he was going to eliminate the debt, and he added $7.8 trillion to the debt. So we need to deliver and get this stuff done. And I think the difference between Nikki Haley and me, I listened to all that litany of stuff. I debated the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. I thought he lied a lot. Nikki Haley gives him a run for his money, and she may even be more liberal than Gavin Newsom is.
Yeah.
And here in Florida, and as Republicans, you need somebody that is going to be in there and fight for you. And Nikki Haley, anytime the going gets tough, anytime people come down, she caves. When you need someone standing and fight for you, don't look for Nikki Haley. You won't be able to find her if you had a search warrant.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Haley?
Look, I think I dealt with Russia, China, Iran, North Korea every day. No one ever said I caved. I defended America and I fought for America.
I mean, you're on the UN. Who gives a shit? That's nothing.
But I'll also say this is not a time where you have to have pettiness. I wish Donald Trump was up here on this stage. He's the one that I'm running against. He's the one that I wish would be here. He needs to be defending his record. Right now, he's not defending the fact that he allowed us to have $8 trillion in debt over 4 years that our kids are never going to forgive us for. The fact that he didn't deal with China when it came to steel.
All right, but how's she going to reduce the debt? She wants to increase the military and all this spending, so they need to explain that.
And continue to threaten our military. He didn't do enough to make sure that we were really standing with our friends and doing some other things. What we need is a leader that's not looking at 4 years and 8 years. We need a president that's looking at 20 and 30 years, because I want my kids to have a good future. I want them to have one without debt, one where they can read, one with secure borders, one where we have law and order, and one where America is strong.
Well,
Thank you.
with all due respect, for her to single out Donald Trump on China, and look, I think he could have been tougher on him 100%. When Nikki Haley was governor of South Carolina, she was the #1 governor in America for Republicans of bringing China into her state. She wrote a love letter to the ambassador saying that they were a great friend. She's on video saying China's a friend. She had a Chinese business 5 miles from a military base. There's a video of her on the website right in front of a Chinese flag saying that she works for them now. So that was her #1.
I don't really think China's a problem here in this country. It really isn't. Our borders being overrun. I don't get this fixation on China. I don't want to live in China. I'm not a fan of China. We should have our jobs here in America. But this fixation on China, it shouldn't really matter to Iowa.
China in a little bit. I want to talk about the economy, which according to a recent Des Moines Register poll shows that the economy is the top issue for caucus goers here. So Governor Haley, the rate of inflation is down. Prices, though, are still high, and Americans are struggling to afford food, cars, and housing. What is the single most important policy that you would implement as president to make the essentials in Americans' lives more important?
I think we have to acknowledge that Republicans and Democrats have both done this. I mean, the fact that they've done all of this wasteful spending, they did a $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that expanded welfare, that's now left us with 80 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. That's a third of our country. What I will do is I think it's time we have an accountant in the White House. We have to have someone that respects taxpayer dollars. And we'll start by clawing back $100 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are still out there. We'll go, and instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we'll go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud, 1 out of every $7. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing, cut up the credit cards. I had to balance a budget as governor.
But she needs specifics. And she said beforehand she wants to greatly increase our military. It's already bloated. So we need to saying getting rid of waste doesn't mean anything.
And I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. And then we want to make sure that we allow the middle class to breathe. We're going to eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country and cut taxes on the middle class.
All right, so they're doing boilerplate, basic bitch GOP positions. I get it. They never follow through. But we're going to reduce regulation. We're going to get rid of reduce taxes. We're going to allow people to breathe again, and it never happens. But it's a safe thing to say.
What's your response? How would you make those essentials more affordable for Americans?
Well, I disagree with Ambassador Haley. We don't need an accountant in the White House. We need a leader in the White House, and that's what I would bring. I've spoken with Iowans, visiting all 99 counties, and also folks all across this country. The American dream is slipping away. People are working hard. They're getting the most out of their God-given ability. They're doing everything right, and they're falling further and further behind. Trying to afford a new home today, your monthly mortgage payment would probably be twice as much as what it would have been if you were starting out 5 years ago. We have to make the economy work for those folks. Yes, I'm going to battle the spending. In Florida, you look, we have the national debt clock going up to 34 trillion. I see it. If you did a debt clock for the state of Florida, it would be counting down because we've paid down 25% of our state debt just since I've been governor. We're going to open up all energy for production because that will be deflationary. Nikki Haley, when she was governor, she promised she would never do the gas tax. Then she tried to raise the gas tax on hardworking South Carolinians. Here's the thing. We need to fly a flag of bold colors, carrying the banner of putting the American people first, not the pale pastels of the warmed over corporatism of people like Nikki Haley.
Governor Haley, I want to bring you in, but because Governor DeSantis mentioned the gas tax, you do want to eliminate the federal gas tax. And that tax generated approximately $40 billion in 2022 and helps pay for road construction and repair. So how would you fix America's roads and bridges if you take that money away?
Well, first of all, bless his heart, DeSantisLies.com. We have never raised a tax.
tried
I've
to.
never raised a tax
You
at
tried.
all. I can tell
You're
you
on
right.
video.
Governor DeSantis, she has the floor.
So I can tell you that we killed the gas tax multiple times. But what we said is if you want to raise the gas tax, you have to reduce the income tax by 5 times that amount. They didn't want to do it. We've killed taxes every step of the way. But if he's going to talk about his economy, I think what we should say is, why does Florida have the highest property insurance in the country? Why?
Because they probably have hurricanes and tornadoes. I'm just guessing.
Now known to have the highest cost of living increases. And why is it that they're saying senior citizens can no longer afford to live in Florida? So that's the first thing I'll say. We don't need him doing that to our country. When it comes to the gas tax, when we eliminate that federal tax, the money is collected in the states and they send it to the feds. The feds attach a lot of strings to it and send it back. 75% comes from the state, 25% comes from the federal government. What they do when they add those strings is they pay for a lot of things that aren't roads, green spaces, sidewalks, all of those things, but they attach strings. I want that money to stay in the states. I want the states to be able to decide how to spend it. I don't want Washington bureaucrats deciding what we need for scenery and green space and all those other things. I want every state, including the state of Iowa, to make the decisions on how they spend their road spending instead of the federal government.
Governor DeSantis, your response?
Right. She kind of admitted that she did try to raise the gas tax, and she's on video saying this. I know she'll say it. She never said it, but she
You
is.
snipped it.
She
that.
did.
You
she
took
did
a little
do it.
piece
She
of
did
that. That is
She
not
also,
true.
She also
You
raised
Governor
taxes.
Haley,
She
Governor
raised
Haley,
taxes when
Governor
she was in
DeSantis has
South
the floor.
Carolina. That's on the record. And she even proposed a tax on groceries at one point. But I'm just thinking, have you seen your grocery bill lately? That's one of the things that's hitting working people the most, that groceries are going up probably twice as much what you do. But I also think it's important that we lift people up. So in Florida, we eliminated all sales tax on every baby item. Diapers, wipes, strollers, cribs. We want families to be able to prosper in this country. One of the things that's causing so much problem is the breakdown in the American family. We've done a lot in Florida to be able to rejuvenate that, but we need.
They're really not answering the question because there is no answer. They want to cut tax because that's popular, but at the same time, they want to reduce the deficit, and they really don't have an answer. This is just a basic, like, Reagan talking point.
Single income tax rate for every American. Under your plan, would working families pay the same tax rate as billionaires?
I would only do it if people are better off than they are now. I mean, I want people paying less taxes. Actually, if you think the last year we have numbers for, the federal government took in the highest percentage of taxes from the economy since World War II, and yet they're going deep into debt. We have a spending problem in this country. It's not a tax problem in this country. And if you had something that was simple and transparent, not only.
And this is another thing the GOP always raises every few years, the flat income tax. They never implement it. It's not going to be implemented. So they're LARPing. Like when I play D&D is pretend, they're just pretending here. You're not going to get a flat tax. And this is something they campaign on because it sounds good, but it's not going to be implemented.
Into the United States. There's going to be a new sheriff in town. We're going to restore the constitutional accountability that our founding fathers envisioned when they formatted the Constitution. And, you know, I've talked to folks who have overbearing federal agencies. I mean, you have farmers who have the EPA coming on their farmland because there's maybe a puddle there, waters of the United States. Give me a break. So we're going to reduce the size of government, but we're also going to reduce the scope.
He should have just answered. It's kind of a gotcha question because they answer the question. Yeah, you pay the same rate, but billionaires make a lot more money, so their rate is higher. But that's what flat tax means. There's nothing wrong with that. Uh-oh, I crashed here. There we go. Sorry about that.
And you'd exempt people, so you would pay no tax for working class people. It would only be as you get above, because I think the first 40, 50 grand, that's just to subsist. And even some places you can't even do that. So you would have no tax up to a certain point, and then it would just be a single rate. So if somebody makes $100,000, they pay a certain amount. If If someone makes 200,000, they make
Governor
twice as much
DeSantis.
and they pay twice as much.
Governor Haley, your
I mean,
response?
first of all, you just can't trust what he says. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We don't have a grocery tax in South Carolina, and I never once raised taxes, period. But what I will tell you is it is to call into question, why did he promise he'd never raise the debt limit and he turned around and he raised it? And then you want to go and you see one side of what he says early on and then he changes.
This is really boring. They're just calling each other a liar. They're talking like Reagan, basic bitch tax policies that they're not going to implement. There's not going to be a flat tax. Of course, they both lie. They're politicians, but there's no vision. I miss Vivek here. I miss Trump. This is just boring shit that they're not going to do. And oh yeah, we want to lower taxes, and oh, I'm going to get rid of waste, and oh, he's a liar. He says something, he didn't do it, and she's probably, I'm sure that's true. And then he turns around, well, you promised this and you didn't do it. You're a liar. They're both liars. They're politicians.
Fracking, you brand offshore drilling, you turn around and authored and led the charge on banning the renewable fuel standard. Yeah. You've got to stand up for those things.
You've been beating that dead horse. That's
because
been debunked
it's
multiple
true,
times.
Ron. It's true.
We're looking forward to be able to open up energy for production, and definitely here in the Midwest with biofuels. I'm the only one that checked all the boxes from the.
Well, he banned drilling in the Everglades. And just because you're a conservative doesn't mean you can't be an environmentalist. So I don't have an issue with that.
Going through how their economy is structured and how it's important that we're producing energy here in the United States. I never want to go hat in hand like Biden has done to Venezuela or Saudi and begging for energy. We're going to be able to open up production. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus.
So far, they haven't disagreed on anything. They just call each other a liar, but their policies that they're standing for are basically the same. Not that they're going to implement it, but we're going to have lower taxes. We're going to get rid of waste, and we're going to have more energy. Well, okay, who's against that?
Will save the American automobile.
Thank you, Governor. This has been one of the biggest years for illegal border crossings into the United States. Last month alone, 225,000 migrants illegally crossed the southern border. It's a record high, overwhelming the Border Patrol resources that are already stretched thin. Mayors across the country say their cities are being pushed to a breaking point. Governor DeSantis, former President Trump famously promised to build a wall on the southern border. He obviously did not get that done. You have promised to finish the job. How will you succeed where he failed?
We will build a wall. We will actually have Mexico pay for it in the way that I thought Donald Trump was. We're going to charge fees on remittances that workers send to foreign countries, billions of dollars. We'll build the wall. He also promised record deportations. Donald Trump deported fewer people than Barack Obama did when he was president. Biden's let in 8 million people just in 4 years. They all have to go back. We have to enforce the rule of law in this country. Think about what's happening to our country. Just this week, we saw the news that a school in Brooklyn, New York, had the kids stay home. They were not able to go to school, told you can't go get an in-person education. Why? Because the city's commandeering the school to house illegal aliens in it. Talk about putting Americans last.
That's a good point. He said illegal aliens. I'm glad he used that speech.
Biden has failed in this endeavor. He has not taken care that the laws of this country be faithfully executed. Do not trust Nikki Haley with illegal immigration. That's like having the fox guard the hen house. She's on tape at the Aspen Institute. She'll say she didn't say it. She was chastising conservatives, saying it's disrespectful to illegal aliens to say that they're criminals. They're violating the law. It's disrespectful when people come to this country illegally and impose burdens on our communities and run drugs into this country. That's what's disrespectful. She's weak on immigration. She's bankrolled by people who want open borders, and she said there shouldn't be a limit on immigration. You should work with corporate CEOs.
Thanks, Governor.
That is pale pastels. That
Governor,
is warmed over.
Thank you so much. So, Governor Haley, Governor DeSantis, and also Donald Trump are attacking you for that comment in 2015 in which you said undocumented immigrants should not be called, quote, criminals. At the time, the full context is you said, quote, we don't need to talk about them as criminals. They're not. They're families that want a better life, and they're desperate to get here, unquote. Do you still feel that way?
I saw them. When I was at the United Nations, I saw them. That doesn't mean we should let them into our country. I mean, first of all, I will tell you that when I was governor of South Carolina, we passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country.
Yeah, it's not like they're Palestinians trying to get into Israel. Oh, no, they're not good people then. But America, oh, they're
On
good
migrant
people.
kids, we fought Obama on Syrian refugees. We fought Obama on Guantanamo Bay prisoners. I have always said we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on. But I will tell you, in passing that toughest illegal immigration law in the country, we passed E-Verify, which I want to take national, which is where businesses have to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. I passed it within 6 months of being governor. Ron didn't pass it for 5 years. He only waited to pass it when he decided to run for president. What we need to do is not just ban a wall. We need to put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We need to defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens for illegal immigrants. We need to make sure we go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we need to go to catch and deport. That's the only way we'll stop the incentives of these illegal immigrants coming across. Biden turned around and gave 500,000 Venezuelans temporary protective status. That's 500,000 driver's licenses, 500,000 social security numbers. All that does is incentivize them to pick up the phone, call their family members, and tell them to come on
Governor
ahead.
DeSantis.
She did bring, when she was governor, she did bring Syrian refugees, and she got criticized for that.
That is not
she
true.
Also, in her comment,
Hold on one second, Governor.
That is not true.
We'll give you your turn in a second.
She
Governor
did.
DeSantis.
It's noted. So
Unbelievable.
the disrespect comment, she's talking about that they're all families. If you look right now at the border, these are military-age males, many of them, and they're coming from all across this world, not just from Central America. In fact, you've got them from China, Iran, Russia, the Middle East. When I was down there a couple years ago, because I've sent people down there, you had people from Libya and Haiti. This is a ticking time bomb for this country. There are, of course, going to be terrorist cells that have come in. It's like the lowest cost way to be able to harm this country. Just send people.
This is a basic bitch talking point I hate. Most of them are not terrorists, and I don't want them here, even if they're good, hardworking families. I don't give a shit. This is our homeland. They wouldn't tolerate this for Israel. We shouldn't tolerate it for our homeland.
And it's a huge
Thank
step
you, Governor
to restoring
DeSantis.
this country's
Thank you, Governor
sovereignty.
DeSantis. Governor Haley.
Go to DeSantisLies.com. I said you can't just build a wall. You have to do more than build a wall. It was having the wall and everything else. You can't trust what Ron's saying. But this is a bigger issue. This is more than him just constantly being desperate and throwing things on me. This is the fact that we have to realize my parents came here legally. They came the right way 50 years ago. They put in the time, they put.
Yeah, and that was a mistake. They shouldn't have been allowed here, as we see.
Mom would always say, if they don't follow the laws to come into this country, they won't follow the laws when they are in this country. And we have to start treating this like it is. This is putting harm on our schools, on our hospitals. Taxpayers are paying for it. You see these mayors are now upset about it. The only reason Eric Adams is now upset, why? He shouldn't be a sanctuary city then. That's why we have to defund sanctuary cities. Now, Governor Abbott finally did to them what's been happening to Texas for so long. We've got to put an end to this. It's dangerous, and it doesn't even count the fentanyl that's
Governor
coming across.
DeSantis. There are more than 10 million undocumented immigrants already living in the United States, according to Pew Research.
They got to go back. They got to go
Will
back.
any of them be allowed to stay in the United States under your administration?
And you got to go next.
The number of people that will be amnestied when I'm president is 0. We cannot do an amnesty in this country. First of all, it's going to do is cause more people to want to come illegally. So you got to enforce the law. It's got to be consistent. People got to know it's there. You also have to remove benefits for people who are here illegally. You know, California, you can go illegal alien and you get free health insurance coverage. You're here illegally and they're doing that. We should not let states provide these benefits. You know, in Florida, obviously, we don't do that. We don't allow the driver's license and all that, but some states do, and it creates a magnet for people coming in. So federally, no benefits, no enticements to come in. And then the states, we're going to crack down on sanctuary states and sanctuary cities. And I showed the hypocrisy of all this back in 2022, because we have a program to transport illegal aliens to sanctuary jurisdictions. And one of the places we sent 50 to beautiful, liberal Martha's Vineyard. And you know what? These are folks that were on their high horse saying how they were a sanctuary jurisdiction, saying nobody's illegal, all refugees are welcome. That's what they had in their town. The minute even 50 came up, they called a state of emergency and deported them off the island the next day.
That was
How do you think Texas feels? How do you think all these other communities feel that are being overwhelmed? So we cannot have liberal elites in this country imposing policies on the rest of us that they are not willing to deal with the consequences of themselves.
Governor Haley, when you're president, will any of the more than 10 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. be allowed to stay in the country under your administration?
You have to deport them. And the reason you have to deport them is they're cutting the line. You've got people who have.
It's interesting. They pretty much, their policies are the same. This is good. I hope this happens. These people needed to be deported, but I think Nikki needs to be deported. So I'm a little stronger than that. But will it happen? No, but it needs to happen. We're losing our country. We're losing our country. Nothing else matters. Iran doesn't matter. China doesn't matter. Ukraine doesn't matter. The border is the only thing that matters at this time.
Because it's a problem. I was on the ground in Honduras and Guatemala. And what we saw is a lot of the reason why they were coming from there is because of gangs and drugs. And so what we did was we had our military go and train them on how to deal with gangs. We went and put drug boats on the water to keep the drugs from coming. But we said, you have to have them processed from here. You can't have them come. We were able to stop that flow. We've got to go back to do that, but we need to end it once and for all. Donald Trump didn't do that. That's why he needs to be here debating on the stage right now.
Governor, thank you. Let's turn to foreign policy. You have expressed different visions for how
they all want war. They all love Israel more than life itself, and they all want war.
Ukraine. It's been nearly 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, and there is still no end in sight to that war. Governor Haley, you say that this is a, quote, war about freedom that Ukraine must win. Governor DeSantis says, quote, we need to bring this war to an end. Do you believe he shares your commitment to a Ukrainian victory?
Nobody knows what he believes because when President Obama was in office, he supported foreign aid to Ukraine. Now he's copying Trump and trying to act like he doesn't want to support Ukraine. But let me tell you why Ukraine should matter. First of all, I don't think we should give cash to any country, friend or foe, because you can't follow it. You can't hold it accountable. I don't think we need to put troops on the ground, and Ukrainians want to win this themselves. But dictators always do what they say they're going to do. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. They did. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. We watched it. China says Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia said once they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries.
They did not say that. She's a liar.
This is about preventing war. It's always been about preventing war. If we support Ukraine, that's only 3.5% of our defense budget. Biden and no one else is telling the American people the truth about that. The Europeans have put in more than that, and they should. It's their neighborhood. But this is a pro-American, freedom-loving country. And we better remember that you have to be a friend to get a friend. And we needed a lot of.
Ukraine is not a freedom country. Coach Redpill is in prison for his speech. They do not have elections. They have canceled elections. They arrest Christian priests. It's not a free country. It's a dictatorship. What a lying bitch.
Won't invade Taiwan. This is about preventing war.
Governor DeSantis.
I supported Trump's policy vis-a-vis Russia, Ukraine, and it was successful. The Biden policy has not been, but Nikki Haley is basically a carbon copy of what Biden is. It's an open-ended commitment. They want another $108 billion. They will not tell you when they have achieved their goal, and this is going to go on maybe hundreds of billions more into the future. I think a lot of people have died. We need to find a way to end this because our priorities for national security, of course, the border, which we talked about, and people like Nikki Haley care more about Ukraine's border than she does about our own southern border, which is wrong. But we also have to look at what's the top threat to this country. It's the Chinese Communist Party. We are not doing what we need to do to have adequate hard power in the Indo-Pacific. And here's the thing. We don't have enough resources being $35 trillion in debt to continue doing hundreds of billions of dollars.
That is right.
Our issues here at home, and we've got to deal with the top threat that we face, which is China.
And then I wonder why you raised the debt when you were in Congress, because we're all paying for that. What I will tell you is this is the lie they're telling the American people over and over again. It is so wrong to say this. They're saying you have to choose between Ukraine or Israel and securing the border. Supporting Ukraine is 3.5% of our budget. I don't want cash going. It's equipment and it's ammunition. If we support Ukraine and Israel, that's only 5% of our defense budget.
So you're going to borrow that?
If we support Ukraine, Israel, and secure the border, that's less than 20% of Biden's green subsidies. You do not have to choose when it comes to national security. This is about keeping Americans safe. This is about preventing war. This is about keeping our military men and women from having to fight a war. And you only do that when you focus on national security, not telling lies to the American people that they have to choose. That is wrong. That's nehever been the case.
So here's the problem with what she's saying. She doesn't articulate how this comes to an end, except she was asked after the last debate by, I believe, Megyn Kelly, and she said, you bring it to an end by bringing Ukraine into NATO. But of course, we're a NATO country. So if you bring Ukraine into NATO, that puts the United States at war. Megyn said that to her, and then she basically gave a word salad as to how you go from there. So they have sent cash. She supports this $106 billion that they're trying to get through Congress. Where's some of that money going? They've done tens of billions of dollars to pay salaries for Ukrainian government bureaucrats. They've paid pensions for Ukrainian.
This is how Republicans lose. And Vivek would just be against this, period. Ron DeSantis is like, we're not spending the money the smart way. And, we just got to have better accountants. No, we need to stop it. Not a penny more. Not a fucking penny more.
United Nations, but you can't take the United Nations out of the ambassador.
First of all, I have never said that we should give salaries or benefits or anything else to Ukrainians. I have said it again, Ron, so stop lying. DeSantisLies.com.
Governor DeSantis, she has the floor.
So you go, I did not support the aid package. I support equipment and ammunition going to Ukraine. I think it is incredibly important that we're honest and say we have to focus on national security. Don't go and lie to the American people to make them think we can't do this. You turn around and raise the debt limit. You're the one that's talked about, look at what you did to Florida. But think about the fact that he's talking about where's this money going to come from? The best way to tell about a candidate is to see how they've run their campaign. He has blown through $150 million. I don't even know how you do that. Through his campaign, he has nothing to show for it. He spent more money on private planes than he has on commercials trying to get Iowans to vote for him. If you can't manage a campaign, how are you going to manage a country? Which is exactly what.
Well, listen, I'm proud that in the state of Florida, we're ranked #1 for economy of all 50 states by CNBC, #1 for education. She was ranked number 50 in education when she was governor of California. And of course, she wasn't able to do school choice. She didn't deliver big tax cuts. We're also #1 for net in-migration, #1 for GDP growth amongst large states, #1 for talent development, #1 for new business formations, and on it goes. So the success we've had in Florida, I can cite the statistics. It's important. But just look how people are voting with their feet. They're leaving California. They're leaving Illinois, New York, all these states, and they're coming to Florida in record numbers because we're doing it right. And not only have I cut taxes big time where she didn't in governor of South Carolina, we've paid down 25% of our state's debt. That's how you manage the third largest state in this country. Just imagine if we could do that for the United States of America.
So thank you. Let's stay on foreign policy. I want to turn to the Israel-Hamas war. You both have said that you...
Oh, we love Israel. Oh, my God, we love Israel.
Elimination.
This is where they get in a fight who loves Israel and the Jews more than anyone else. This should be fun.
About how to handle what happens in Gaza after the war against Hamas is over. Some Israeli cabinet officials are pushing for the mass removal of Palestinians from Gaza. Governor Haley told CNN last week she does not support that. Do you?
So we got to support Israel in word and in deed, in public and in private. And they need to be able to finish the job. Joe Biden is kneecapping him. He'll say one thing, then he goes and his base doesn't.
So he's just giving a blank check for ethnic cleansing. Ron DeSantis, that's what he's saying here.
Most deaths of Jews, murder of Jews since the Holocaust. Hamas wants a second Holocaust. They want to annihilate the state of Israel. So I think to be a good ally, you back them in the decisions that they're making with respect to Gaza. Look, there's a lot of pluses and minuses with how you're doing this, but for us to be sitting in Washington, second guessing them, I don't think that's the right way.
But we're paying for it. We're paying for it. Yeah, I agree. We shouldn't second guess it. If they're paying for it, we're paying for it.
And the Palestinian Arabs. The problem with that is the Palestinian Arabs don't recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. So doing a two-state solution doesn't create.
So he supports an ethno-state. And all the Jews, or at least lobbies like the ADL, they think us having our homelands for our people, that's Nazism and white supremacy.
To a so-called two-state solution. She was wrong when she embraced that, and we're right to say we trust Israel to make these decisions. They're a good ally of ours. We should trust their judgment on these sensitive issues.
Governor DeSantis, 15 seconds, 15-second clarification. Do you support the mass removal of Palestinians from Gaza?
So as president, I am not going to tell them to do that. I think there's a lot of issues with that. But if they make the calculation that to avert a second Holocaust, they need to do that. I think some of these Palestinian Arabs.
Wow, so he does support ethnic cleansing. Oh, it's another Holocaust.
Never been willing to any of these folks in their own neighborhood.
Thank you, Governor Haley.
Well, first of all, we need to understand that the reason we need to support Israel is Israel's a bright spot in a tough neighborhood. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to defeating terrorism. It has never been that Israel needs America. It has always been that America needs Israel.
What the hell?
When I was at the United Nations, I fought every day for Israel. And if you would have listened to what I said at the United Nations, a two-state solution wasn't something that was possible because Israel would always come to the table and the Palestinians wouldn't. But right now, we have to make sure that Israel has the support that it needs. There should be three things. Give Israel whatever it wants.
Give Israel whatever it wants. A blank check, blank check.
Do whatever it takes to bring the hostages home. But it's really rich that Ron is going to act like he suddenly cares for Israel when he brought the person to Iowa that's the most anti-Israel Republican in the state, the person that went and voted against Israel's right to exist in Congress, the person that voted with the squad against anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Thank you, Governor.
And you brought that person
Thank you,
to Iowa to go and campaign with you. If that's your friend,
Governor
I'd hate to see
DeSantis,
who
she's
the rest
obviously
of your
referring to
friends are.
Congressman Tom Massey from Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, that's just cheap garbage. But here's the thing: when the attacks happened against Israel, I knew it was going to be a big deal for Florida. We have one of the largest Israeli American populations in the country, and we've been a haven for Orthodox.
This is a problem. This is a problem right here. This shows the problem. We don't have control over this country. The two leading candidates besides Trump, and Trump's probably in this, they blank check to Israel, no limit how much money, whatever you want. If you want to genocide of people, we support it. It's just bizarre. Both of them. This is disgusting. I can't support any of these guys. I can't. This is despicable what they're doing here.
Yesterday or 2 days ago, that we are going to say, and not just for Jewish students, anyone who's having being persecuted or being marginalized because of their faith in any college around the country, we're going to waive the transfer requirement so that people can come to Florida and be safe. What they are doing to these Jewish students has been reprehensible, and we're not going to let.
Oh no, the Ivy League schools are going to Holocaust the Jews.
Growing fears of this war escalating into a broader regional conflict. And Governor Haley, just yesterday, the U.S. Navy shot down 21 missiles and drones fired.
Oh, they both want war with Iran, too.
Iranian-backed militants are now also attacking U.S. and Western interests in Syria and Iraq. Your fellow South Carolinian Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is calling for the U.S. to conduct retaliatory strikes inside Iran. Would you order strikes inside Iran?
Well, first of all, notice Ron didn't say anything about the fact that he did bring that most anti-Israel Republican into this state to campaign. He also hasn't told you that the only Republican Jewish state legislator left his campaign because he wasn't dealing with the neo-Nazis.
My God, they're still on the Jews. How much? I mean, it's just so bizarre how much subservient they are. It's like we can't rule ourselves. This is embarrassing.
There would not be Houthis without Iran. There wouldn't be Hezbollah without Iran. And when you look at the strikes that are happening in Iraq and Syria, that is because of Iran. They're pulling the puppet strings. What we need to do is the idea that we've had over 130 strikes on our men and women in Iraq and Syria is unconscionable. We're supposed to have their backs. And Biden has been slow. He's been hiding in a corner and he hasn't dealt with it. We need to go and take out every bit of the production that they had that's allowing them to do those strikes. It's hugely important that we do that. And you can't do that if you have a Secretary of Defense that is in ICU and the president doesn't even know about it. What bothers me is, how does Biden not talk to his Secretary of Defense every single day, knowing that we have a...
Because Biden's not running things, and the Secretary of Defense is affirmative action pick. He doesn't do anything either. So Biden doesn't do anything, and the big black guy that's there because he's black doesn't do anything. That's the reason.
Contact with the president, much less in contact with his staff, is unforgivable.
Governor DeSantis.
After the attacks against Israel, anyone with half a brain knows Iran is behind this. They fund Hamas, they fund Hezbollah. We did a special session in the legislature down in Florida. We expanded sanctions against Iran. If we were our own country, we'd be the 14th largest economy in the world. The root of this is Biden came into office and he relaxed the sanctions on Iran. They've had massive amounts of money flooding into their country, just like under the Obama administration. They take that money and they use it to fund jihad around the world. I'm the only one running for president that served in the armed forces. I deployed to Iraq back in 2007, 2008. So I understand what our military goes through. I would never put our troops in harm's way like Biden is doing in the Middle East without defending them with everything they got. If you harm a hair on the head of one of our service members, you are going to have hell to pay. He's leaving them out to dry. And I think it's disgraceful for a commander-in-chief to do that.
Thank you, Governor. The CNN Republican presidential debate live from Des Moines, Iowa. We'll be right back after this. Go to CNN.com.
All right, well, we'll have a break here. I got a couple super chats. Thank you, guys. I really do appreciate this. And after the show, we'll kind of recap and talk about it too. I don't want to get to the super chats why it's going on, but it's a break now. So I'm going to read some of the super chats. Let's see here. Stream elements I have up. Let's see. Ryan, thank you. Ryan Leclerc. These debates are so ridiculous. They're often better than primetime TV. They've been silly. They pretty much agree on anything. They just call each other a liar. K-Max, Rams, there should be an Israeli drinking game. Who mentions Israel more, Haley or DeSantis? America, Israel, who would they pick? Both would pick Israel. They consider Israel to be our leaders. They are prostrating themselves, kowtowing to Israel. Ron DeSantis is fine with ethnic cleansing. He'd be fine. As I said, both these candidates, if Israel should say, we're going to build death camps and gas everyone in Gaza Strip, we're going to gas them, they would both support it. And I'm not joking. I'm not joking. B, my debt, my taxes, who cares when we're talking about real issues, immigration, guns, freedom, abortion, degeneracy. Yeah, they talk about fanciful stuff they're not going to do. They're talking about cutting taxes, but they're planning on starting all these new wars, like with Iran. Let's see here. B, hey, Rams, I generally agree with you. I'm Ukrainian Orthodox priest. The people who are being arrested are not Christian priests. They are Muscovite agents. I don't know if these Orthodox Christian priests are secret agents. I kind of doubt that. Thank you, though. Because it's easy to say that they may be sympathetic towards Russia, but in a free society, you allow that. K-Max, Paul, Haley, and DeSantis are slobbering who loves Israel more, who loves Jewish students more and ignores white people more. Yeah, that's why I miss Vivek. Vivek, is that how you pronounce his name? Yeah, and again, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are almost exactly the same on their policies. They just call each other a liars, really, the whole debate here. So the debate, I think, has been, I don't know who's winning, because it's to me, both of them have disqualified themselves by putting a foreign country in charge of our country. And that is outrageous to me. That's disqualifying for both of them. is fine if we want to be friendly with other countries, including Israel. But to say Israel gets a blank check, whatever they want to do, they can do. If they want to commit genocide, we're okay with that. That's outrageous. He goes, oh, it's not for us to tell them what to do. We're giving them our fucking money. So it's ridiculous. ETNM, we shouldn't even have an election. Tel Aviv can pick whomever they want. I don't care anymore. At this point, I'm that way too. I don't know why they bother to bring this to Iowa, because they obviously don't care about the people in Iowa. They just care about Israelis. That's all they care about at this point. It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed as an American seeing this display. And it's just not Israel. If it had been any country, that's all they talk about. Just imagine during the whole this whole debate, they talked about how we got to stand with Iceland and we got to give money to Iceland. And if Iceland, if they want to genocide everyone in Greenland, that's their business because they're God's people. It's just crazy. Oh, whatever Iceland wants, blank check. And meanwhile, we have this huge deficit. I mean, they're all frauds. And it's I can't support either of these two people. I'm just not interested in supporting either two. I want to say that I guess I'm sort of rooting for DeSantis, but his slobbering over Israel just ended that. And I know why he does that, because they have the power. I got to suck up to them. Please don't hurt me. Yes, massa. I mean, eventually we have to say, are we our own people, self-determination, or are we slaves? Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis is basically saying we're a vassal state of Israel. Israel controls us, and we better get on our knees and bow to them. It is fucking embarrassing, and it is bizarre. Okay, here they are. Hopefully they're done with the Israel worship, and now we'll get on another topic.
Question in the Republican Party right now, and that is, what is the role of government, and should it use its power to go after businesses and private entities that take actions that don't align with conservative values? Governor DeSantis, you used your powers in Florida to take on Disney after the company criticized an education bill that you signed into law. How does that square with the traditional conservative view that small, limited government is best?
The proper role of government, if it means anything, it's to protect our kids. And I've stood for the innocence of our kids. It is wrong. It is wrong to sexualize the curriculum. It's wrong. And look, my wife and I, we've got a first grader, a kindergartner, and a preschooler. This is something that's important to us personally. It's wrong to tell a kindergartner, like Disney wanted to do, that you can change your gender, or tell a third grader that you're born in the wrong body. So I stood up against, the media didn't like it, the left didn't like it, and Disney didn't like it, and they're the 800-pound gorilla in the state of Florida. Most people, most corporate Republicans would have caved. I stood and I fought for the kids. We took on Disney and we defeated that, and we won that fight, and our kids are better off. Now, Nikki Haley sided with Disney. She invited them to South Carolina, even though they were involved in transing kids. That is not what we need to do. But I think that's similar. She is representative of this corporatist element of the party. For example, she supported $900 million in subsidies to Boeing when she was in South Carolina. And then when she got out of office, she took a seat on their board and she made millions of dollars. Then she gave speeches, paid speeches to a lot of Wall Street interests, didn't publish what she said. We don't know what she promised them. And she made millions of dollars doing that. Now they're the ones that are funding her campaign. So we need to stand up for the people and not bow down to woke corporations. And we know Nikki Haley will cave to the woke mob every single time.
Governor Haley, a response?
Government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. And what we don't need is government politicizing anything. The first thing I'll say is, again,
but that's what governments do. I mean, they define the rules. Everything is politicized with government. Stupid.
Always fought to protect kids. I've always said that boys need to go into boys' bathrooms, girls need to go into girls' bathrooms, that we shouldn't have any gender transitions before the age of 18. Just like we don't have tattoos before the age of 18, we shouldn't have gender transformation or puberty blockers. But I will tell you that it's really interesting that Ron talks about this Disney, because Disney has been woke for a long time. They were against the immigration situation that Trump was doing. They were against the Paris Climate Agreement when I did it. They were against the pro-life bill in Georgia. Ron didn't have any problem with that. As a matter of fact, he gave them the largest corporate subsidies in Florida history. He had a tech exemptions that he gave. Didn't give any tech exemptions to anybody but Disney. Yet when they went and criticized him, he got thin-skinned and suddenly started to fight back. We don't need government fighting against our private industries. We are not woke in South Carolina. I will always invite businesses to come to South Carolina. But the one thing you don't do is government doesn't bully our businesses, and that can't happen. And Ron is determined anybody that offends him, he goes after them, and he'll use government.
She just said she's always fought to protect kids, but when she was governor of South Carolina, they had a bill to protect girls from men going into the bathroom. She killed it, and she's bragged about it for years that happened. She didn't stand up and fight the kids. She caved to the Chamber of Commerce and the corporation. She said she's against the surgeries for minors. That wasn't what she said this summer. She was asked about it. It's on video. And she said the law should stay out of it. I criticized her in the last debate. She took a lot of heat. So then she's flipped and said that there now should be the law involved. She said she supports a federal law. I'm glad she's come to the right thing. But here's the deal. It goes back to that young kid in the town hall that she had, where he said, Nikki Haley, you are the new John Kerry. You're for it before you are against it.
It's a shame that we had to put up DeSantisLies.com. Honestly, if
This is boring. I mean, don't just always refer to your website. This is dumb. And I want to hear their vision. I know, okay, they're calling each other a liar. I get it. Okay. Their politicians are fucking liars. But this is dumb what she's
trying to
doing.
lie about me, then he
Ooh, they're lying about me. Ooh, go to my website, DeSantisLies.com. No one's going to go to your fucking website. This is a debate. They're not going to go to your website. You need to deal with it now, not refer to them to your website. Stupid woman.
years ago, we had a handful of kids that may have had that issue. And what I made very clear at that time in the state is girls go into girls' bathrooms, boys go into boys' bathrooms. And if there are any other exceptions, they use a private bathroom. I have fought for women's sports and making sure that biological boys are not women's sports, and I'll continue to do that. I have always said we have to raise strong girls. Strong girls become strong women. Strong women become.
Yeah, but what's a girl?
If we have
Thank you, Governor.
biological boys,
Governor Haley, according to the U.S. Department of Education, in 2017, the year you left office, South Carolina schools ranked in the bottom 10 nationwide in both reading and math scores. Given that, why should voters concerned about
I think they have a heavy black population in South Carolina too, though.
I think what we did was we knew that there was an issue. We knew in South Carolina, if a child couldn't read by third grade, they were 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So what we did is we started holding kids back instead of pushing them forward. We brought in their parents. We did reading remediation, and we set them up for success. We've got to do that all over our country. We only have 31% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading. 27% of 8th graders are proficient in math. If we don't do something, we're going to be in a world of hurt 10 years from now. That's why I want to take as many federal programs from DC as we can and send them down to the state level. Think education. We can move a lot of K through 12 programs down to the state level, reduce the strings that are attached, and that way states can handle it themselves. People in Iowa know best what types.
That would be funny though when asked about it. Well, we have a big black population. So she can't answer the question.
Transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. That's why we'll have all of the curriculums online for every parent to see. And we need to start putting vocational classes back in our high school.
So she's not really answering why was she in the bottom of education. I get why she can't answer it. So she's going blah, blah, blah. We have all these plans, blah, blah, blah.
Start putting education back in the states and away from DC. That's when we'll start to see that we're going back to the basics. We're doing what parents want, and we're doing what the industries in that state need.
Well, thank you, Governor DeSantis. I'm coming to you right now. Governor DeSantis, you have supported limits on what subjects can be taught and how, including American history, in Florida schools. You have also made it easier to remove books from public school libraries. You say you want to, quote, make America Florida. Do you want to implement those Florida school policies nationwide?
I'll get to that in a sec. So Nikki Haley said she wants parents to decide on the education. She campaigned for governor saying she was going to do school choice, to be able to give private scholarships particularly to low-income families. And she was governor and never did it. She caved to the teachers union. I delivered the biggest school choice expansion in the history of the United States. We beat the teachers union. We've even done paycheck protection so that teachers aren't forced to do dues, and now they're choosing other things. So we've done it right in Florida, and the results speak for themselves. We have one of the top performing fourth grade reading and math in the country. And if you just took our charter school population, 365,000 kids, disproportionately low income, racial ethnic minorities, if they were their own state, they'd be in the top 5 in performance. Everyone can succeed, but you got to have a leader who's going to fight the teachers unions and is going to deliver school choice. Governor Kim Reynolds did that here in Iowa, who's endorsed me. Nikki Haley did not. She failed. And if she can't do it in the reddest state in the country of South Carolina, how are you going to be able to succeed in Washington, D.C.? Now, in terms of what we've done, we believe in empowering parents. And there's certain standards about what's age and developmentally appropriate. It's wrong to have pornographic materials in 4th or 5th grade. And you know what's happened? They'll go to school board meetings all around the country. They'll start reading it and they say, oh, no, it's too graphic. You can't read it here. You can't put it on the 6 o'clock news. Well, if it's not appropriate in a school board meeting and you can't put on the 6 o'clock news, why are you jamming it down the throats of a 4th grader?
So, Governor, just a point of clarification. Do you want to implement Florida's education policies nationwide?
It depends on the policy. School choice, universal, yes. I don't want a nationalized curriculum. I think that that's a bottom-up thing. I want to get rid of the Federal Department of Education, get that weight off the backs of the state and local governments. But we are going to do nationwide scholarships through the corporate tax credits, and that's going to bail out a lot of poor kids throughout this country.
Governor Haley?
You know, I have fought for school choice in my entire career because I think parents know their children best, and I think we should always do that. That's why we passed charter school legislation in our state. That's why we empowered homeschoolers in our state. That's why we changed the funding formula so we lifted up challenged areas without bringing down the wealthy areas. We wanted school choice. I had a Republican legislature that wouldn't do it, but we pushed hard to get that done. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it across the country, but what we have to do is we have to make it state-centric. We've got to get these programs down to the state level. We've got to let the focus be on teachers. Teachers right now have to be the guidance counselors, the pastors, the nurses, and everything in between. And oh, by the way, they have to teach to a test. That's not what teachers want. Teachers want to do what they were taught to do. And that means math, science, reading, history, English, arts. That's it. Schools can't be all things to all kids. They need to let the parents parent.
Teachers aren't what you think. There's some good teachers, but they're a very woke profession. They like something like 95% vote Democrat. So don't think it's like Little House on the Prairie teacher.
He blames other people. Leadership is about getting things done. Stop making excuses. Make it happen.
If leadership's about getting things done, how did you blow through $150 million in your campaign and you were down in the polls?
So
you are not a manager. No, now I'm going to say.
I think it's very instructive about how Nikki Haley sees the world.
I think I have the floor.
Political advertisements as like that's as important as the kids and their education. What is more important here? She's saying somehow that that's not as important.
It's Governor Haley's time. Go ahead.
I think I hit a nerve. What I will tell you is, look, if you can't manage a campaign, it's been a revolving door of political people in and out of his campaign.
Yeah, the campaign has been poor, but that is kind of irrelevant to his governing. He is right about that. And she's getting a lot of the backers from the liberal groups. So big deal,
We went and saved our money. We made sure we spent it right because you have to understand it's not your money. It's other people's money and you have to know how to handle it. If he can't handle the financial parts of a campaign, how's he going to handle the economy when it comes to the White House? And he goes and he has been demeaning me over and over again, telling lies, DeSantisLies.com, because he thinks that.
Go to DeSantisLies.com. Go to DeSantis Lies. I can't stand that.
You're invisible in New Hampshire. You're invisible in South Carolina. You're in 5th place. You've got $150 million and you've gone down in the polls in Iowa. Why should we think you can manage or do anything in this country?
Thank you, Governor DeSantis.
This is a great window into leadership because she focused on a lot of political process stuff, things that no voter cares about. And she couldn't tell you why she failed to deliver school choice to people in her state after she promised it. So she says somehow that is the indicative of, no, leadership is about producing results. We've produced the results in Florida. We did universal school choice. We've cut taxes. We banned sanctuary cities. On and on down the line, everything I promised I delivered. She doesn't have a rationale for why she couldn't get it done. That is poor leadership. You look at me, everything I promised I would do, I've delivered, and you can expect nothing less when I'm the president of the United States.
We're gonna move on now.
I need to respond to that.
Go ahead.
So you want to talk about leadership, and he wants to go and demean and put down. Let me tell you what leadership is. Leadership is the fact that I went into South Carolina that had 11% unemployment rate. Leadership is the fact that we turned it into an economic powerhouse, building planes, building cars, building tires. We were named the Beast of the Southeast. We moved the 11% unemployment down to 4%. We announced jobs in every county in the state. We moved 35,000 people on welfare to work. We changed our prison system to where we now have the lowest recidivism rate in the country. We passed voter ID. We passed tort reform. We did pension reform. We paid down our debt. We cut taxes. We made sure that people were proud again. We did E-Verify in the first 6 months, not 5 years like Ron. So
Okay, I can't stand her voice. I mean, it's a little Hillary-ish. Her voice is grating on me. It is.
in America was respected again at the
Moving on to a topic, governors, that both of you have made central to your campaigns, and that is China. Governor Haley, American farmers were hurt by former President Trump's trade war with China. As a result, his administration paid out $28 billion in subsidies to farmers. You have vowed to be even tougher than Donald Trump on China. If your trade policies also end up hurting America's farmers, are you prepared to cut a check just like he did?
Well, that's why Trump should be here on this debate stage. He should have to defend it. So first of all, I've said China is our #1 national security threat. I fought them every single day at the United Nations. I know what they're capable of. The first thing we have to do is we have to make sure we stop selling them any land and we take back the land they already purchased. We need to go to our universities and we say, you either take Chinese money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over. We need to stop all of the technologies that are going to China. Biden approved
We do, because China, as Alex Jones has shown, they control Hollywood, they control our media. I mean, our politicians are just bought and sold by China. That's the problem. That is the problem right there.
in terms of trade. And the one thing we'll do is we won't wait for the China to pull the rug out from under Iowans. What we'll do is instead we will move that trade to where we have friends. We will go and build partnerships, India, Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Australia, Israel. We will go and move that trade over. Right now, you can ask our farmers, when they go and they buy from China, China orders, cancels the order, then goes and tries to buy it cheap. That's what China does. Our farmers deserve better than that. We will get them trade deals. When I was governor in South Carolina, we sold and we exported everything we were making in South Carolina. When I'm president, we will sell and export everything that's being made in Iowa to those that are our friends, not our enemies.
Thank you. Governor DeSantis, your response?
The way you deal with China is threefold. One, we need more hard power in the Indo-Pacific. I'm a Navy guy. We need more sea power. We're going to build that up, and we're going to have a strategy to deny their ability to invade Taiwan or to get beyond the first island chain. On the current course, they're going to take advantage of Biden, and we're going to rue the day when that happens. Second, we got to decouple our economy, particularly things that are nationally significant to our national survival. And you got to be methodical, strategic about it. There's a lot of moving parts there, but we're going to do that. Nikki Haley's not going to be able to do that because a lot of her supporters make a lot of money in China. And so she's going to talk tough, but she'll cave on that. And then also with here in the United States, she's saying they shouldn't be buying land and be in the universities. When she was governor of South Carolina, the state gave China land. And they were in the universities. As governor in Florida, I banned China from buying land and we kicked them out of our universities. That's what you want to do.
DeSantisLies.com. He has an economic development arm. You had an off.
I really I don't think that's effective, just repeating a website over and over. It's just really cringe.
You had the website scrubbed. So we know that that's the case. What I will tell you is we need to focus on what we're going to do to become less dependent on China. And we need to make sure that we look at it through a national security lens. When we had COVID, everybody told you to wear a mask. It was made in China. They told you to take a COVID test. You turn it over. It was made in China. If you go down the drugstore aisle, all those medicines are made in China. We need to make sure we're getting medicines made here, or we need to get it from our friends so that we're not in any way threatened. But I'll tell you, Ron continues to sit there and talk about China. He has done expansions in China. His biggest donor that is backed by China gave them $340,000. So don't go and talk about donors and money. Go to DeSantis.
This is a weird fixation on China that the elite have that I don't think the base really does. It's really bizarre, but they really do have a hard on about China.
Big effort to bring them into the state. They had land near a military base. You were in front of the Chinese flag saying you work for them. You wrote a love letter to the ambassador. That's well documented. You were the #1 Republican governor in the country. And even people that on the media who are hostile to me, they say they can't find one instance of me as governor recruiting a Chinese company because I haven't done it. It's not been part of that. And the Enterprise Florida, we actually eliminated. So here's the thing, though. She's backed by companies like BlackRock. She's backed by major companies on Wall Street. They make a lot of money in China. There's a reason why you're in the mess you are in terms of trying to deal with the inflation and everything, because the elites in this country have sold out the middle of the country for China. She is part of that now, and she's not going to stand up for you.
Governor DeSantis, I want to ask about something that you mentioned you've been talking a lot about on the campaign trail, which is decoupling the U.S. economy with China's. China is a top supplier of goods to the United States. The U.S. sells more than $150 billion of goods to China every year. Is it really possible to sever economic ties without inflicting major pain on American business and American consumers?
Sure it is. And it's something that you got to be strategic. You got to be methodical about. You got to focus on the things that are of national significance. For example, I don't think it's a good idea that the pharmaceuticals come from there, things for our military weaponry, all these important things that if we got into a worldwide conflict, we're going to ask China, who may be on the other side of that, to continue doing that. So you got to be smart about it. You got to recognize that you're going to have to do some incentives here in this country, tax incentives, regulatory incentives, but I want to make things here again. You know, I look around the country, there's parts of Iowa that have been hollowed out, particularly in the eastern part. And I've talked to folks and seen what that did for the community. We were sold a bill of goods by a lot of elites in this country that somehow putting China in the WTO and granting a most favored nation status was going to lead to our manufacturing exporting a bunch of stuff there. Instead, they've gobbled up so much more manufacturing. I don't think you can be a first-rate power unless you have a very strong industrial base. So we're going to do that here. We're going to work on workforce education. You know, not everyone needs to do a 4-year brick and ivy university. That's not the best way or only way for people to succeed. We're going to do skilled trades. We're going to do vocational. We've done that in Florida. It's going to be a really, really big thing. But I just think the middle of the country has to have those good paying jobs. And we can't put the interests of some of the people on Wall Street over the interests of Americans on Main Street.
Let's move on to Social Security. Let's move on to Social Security. According to the Social Security Administration, Social Security will be unable to pay full benefits in a decade if no action is taken. Governor DeSantis, you have said that you're not going to, quote, mess with Social Security, unquote. Does that mean you have committed to never raising the retirement age and never cutting benefits?
So all seniors out there, promise has been made to you. You've paid into this. Every single paycheck that you've had your entire life, they've taken money out of, and that promise needs to be fulfilled. So that will happen when I'm president. Of course, I have a lot of seniors in Florida that depend on Social Security. I know many of them, and I think back to my own grandmother who lived till 91. Social Security was her sole source of income. So promise made, promise kept. You know, on the retirement age, you know, it used to be people would say, well, life expectancy is going up. Shouldn't it mirror that? Well, the problem now in the last 5 years is life expectancy is going down. So I don't see how you can raise the retirement age when our life expectancy is collapsing in this country. That's a huge problem in and of itself. I'll work with both sides of the aisle. We'll work on something for the long-term strengthening, but I am not going to mess with seniors' benefits. In this high inflation environment, groceries are going through the roof. Rent is going through the roof, all these staples, and you get a cost of living adjustment, but that's not enough to cover the costs that have been increased. So seniors are really strapped, particularly those that are on fixed income, and they have to know that we're going to deliver when it comes to their Social Security check. Now, we're going to get inflation down. We're going to get energy costs down. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to help seniors, but I think seniors should know promise made will be a promise kept.
So just a point of clarification, 15 seconds. Removing current seniors from the equation, you're not saying that you're committing to never raising the retirement age or cutting benefits.
I would never raise the retirement age in the face of declining life expectancy. I mean, I think that would be really bad. I mean, just think about it. That hurts blue collar folks. You get taxed your entire life. Life expectancy's down. You may not even be recouping very many benefits. And so life expectancy is declining.
Thank you, Governor.
That's a big
Governor
problem.
Haley?
3 years in a row, he voted to raise life expectancy to 70 years old. 3 years in a row. Go to DeSantisLies.com and you'll see it. So now suddenly he's going to tell you because he's running for president, he's not going to do it. You can't trust him. What I'll tell you is Social Security is going to go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare is going to go bankrupt in 8. He talks about taking care of seniors. Right now, Florida is the inflation hotspot. It's the highest cost of living of any state in the country. Seniors are having to leave because they can't afford it. It's documented in DeSantisLies.com. What I'll tell you we have to do is we have to keep our promises to seniors, but we also can't put our head in the sand. For those like Ron saying they're not going to touch Social Security, that means they're going to leave after 4 or 8 years and leave it bankrupt? No. What we do is we go to those in their 20s and say we're going to change the retirement age to reflect life expectancy. Instead of cost of living increases, we do increases based on inflation. We limit benefits on the wealthy.
Thank you, Governor.
And we expand Medicare Advantage plans, which seniors love.
Thank you,
That's
Governor.
how we'll deal with making sure they have it.
Reducing the benefits, when you do the change in calculation, reducing the benefits. So let's just put this in perspective. Under her administration, you would have seniors getting less cost of living adjustments while your tax dollars are going to pay the pensions of Ukrainian bureaucrats.
That's not true.
You talk about putting
That's such a
Americans
lie,
last.
Ron.
That is wrong. You've supported all that money going over there. So let's put
You're
our
so
own people
desperate.
first. We
You're
have to
just
put
so
people
Governor
first.
Haley, let him
And she
speak.
also said, she said recently that the age of Social Security is way too low. And I criticized that. And then she was called on it. And then she said she never said it. Of course, you're lying. And then sure enough, you put on the interview where she's there, spitting image, and she says it's way too low. So, we can play this song and dance. She has a record. She makes statements. And I think part of the problem with her candidacy is now that she's getting scrutiny, she's got this problem with ballistic podiatry, shooting herself in the foot every other day, saying things that now she doesn't even take questions from people.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis. Governor Haley, you want to raise the retirement age for younger Americans, but you have not said what that age should be. Should voters in their 20s plan on working until they're 70?
First of all, he hasn't answered the fact that he voted to raise the retirement age to 73 different times. He can call me whatever name and be demeaning as much as he wants. It doesn't change the fact that Ron's lying because Ron's losing. Everybody in the country sees it for what it is. So what I'll tell you is, yes, we're going to be responsible with it, and we're going to go to those in our 20s. When I said the retirement age was too low, again, where he's lying, it's because if you go, and you can go to DeSantisLies.com, I said it's too low if we're going to look at those in their 20s. We have to go and start looking at what we can do to get out of this. We want to make sure that everybody who was promised gets it, but we also want to make sure our kids have something when they get it too. So the way we do that is exactly how I laid it out.
You notice when it comes to Israel, no questions asked, blank check. When it comes to Americans, oh no, we got to be fiscally responsible.
12 veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. That will save us trillions. We've got to go into every agency, replace the head of every agency, and send people into every agency. I did that as governor. Pull down old regs, pull down old programs, get rid of any problem children, and clean those agencies out and get them mission focused. There is a lot of waste in DC. You need an accountant to go in there and clean it up, but we're not going to take away from anyone else. And he's yet to answer the fact that he voted 3 times to raise the retirement
Just a
age.
clarification, Governor Haley, in 15 seconds, should voters in their 20s plan on having to work until they're 70?
They should plan on their retirement age being increased, yes. We're going to change it to reflect more of what life expectancy should be.
Well, one of the things that I think we disagree on too is Governor Haley has said Social Security is an entitlement. But it's not an entitlement. You're paying into it. It's not a welfare program. You're being taxed for this your whole life. And so to expect to have benefits on the back end, I don't think that that's too much. The other thing I'd point out is Social Security for decades ran massive surpluses. What happened to those surpluses? The Congress spent the surpluses.
Yes, when you
they
raise
have a
the
big
debt.
problem with that. So number one, we need term limits for members of Congress. Number two, we need a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Number three, we need to give the president a line item veto. And number four, when you see all these congressmen making a killing in the stock market, like Nancy Pelosi, she could run a very lucrative hedge fund. We need a 28th Amendment to the Constitution that says very simply, Congress shall make no law respecting the citizens of the United States that does not also apply to members of Congress themselves.
I want to turn now to the topic of abortion, which of course has been hotly debated in this Republican primary campaign. Governor Haley, last week, Governor DeSantis said that former President Trump is not pro-life. Do you agree?
I mean, look, I think that he did some pro-life things when he was president. You'd have to ask him. That's why he should be on this debate stage. Don't ask me what President Trump thinks. You need to have him on this debate stage and ask him for yourself.
Governor DeSantis?
Well, look, I think that we've stood very strongly for a culture of life. Governor Reynolds is here. She has stood strongly for a culture of life and enact pro-life protections. We've done it in the state of Florida. Donald Trump has attacked that. What they did under Governor Reynolds here in Iowa, he said that that's a, quote, terrible, terrible thing. I don't know how you square that. He was at the March for Life when he was president his last year, and he said that life's a gift from God, that the unborn are made in the image of God, and that you needed to have protections for that human life. And now saying it's a terrible, terrible thing. He's given a gift to the left to weaponize that against pro-lifers, and that's wrong. But here's the thing. Republicans need to do a better job of lifting up folks who are having children. It's very difficult to raise kids in this environment. You need to help with medical care. You need to help with affordability, and we need to help with education choice. You got to be pro-life for the whole life, and you got to have some compassion for what is going on in this country.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Governor, yesterday in Iowa, you criticized Governor Haley on this issue of abortion. You said she's, quote, indulged in left-wing tropes and chastised pro-lifers. Do you believe Governor Haley is sufficiently pro-life?
I think she's been confused on the issue. I think she's trying to speak to different groups with different things. But when she says things like pro-lifers need to stop talking about throwing women in jail, that's a trope. No one I've ever met thinks that that's something that's appropriate. These women are in vulnerable situations. They don't get any help a lot of times from these fathers who don't want to be there supportive. A lot of times they don't have resources themselves. So it's a very difficult situation. And we've got to have compassion for those situations. But I think when she starts bringing that in, that's using the language of the left to try to attack pro-lifers. So I think that is wrong. But at the end of the day, I do agree with her on this. Donald Trump should be on this stage. He owes it to you here in Iowa to explain this change he's had in his positioning, to explain why he has a tough time saying whether a man can become a woman or not, to explain why he wants to build a $1 billion plus big, beautiful new FBI building right in the heart of the swamp in Washington, D.C. He needs to explain why he didn't build the wall and why he added $7.8 trillion to the debt. Every candidate needs to earn your vote. Nobody's entitled to your vote. And he comes in here every now and then, he does his spiel, and then he leaves. I've shown up to all 99 counties because it's important. You're a servant of the people. You are not a ruler over the people. And that's the type of president that I will be for you.
Governor Haley, your response?
I didn't hear the criticism from Ron about me for being pro-life, but I'm not surprised. It's something that he does all day, every day. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband is adopted. And I've got my two sweet children sitting in front of me, and I had trouble having both of them. These fellas don't know how to talk about abortion. I have said over and over again, the Democrats put fear in women on abortion, and Republicans have used judgment. This is too personal of an issue to put fear or judgment. Our goal should be, how do we save as many babies as possible and support as many moms as possible? That's what we're going to focus on doing. We're not going to demonize this issue anymore. We're not going to play politics with this issue anymore. We're going to treat it like the respectful issue that it is. And the tropes that you want to talk about, you keep saying, where is anybody talking about putting a woman in jail or giving her the death penalty? South Carolina. There is legislation right now that would put a woman in jail if she got an abortion.
Thank you, Governor.
That's why I say that.
Thank you, Governor. So I do want to remind the viewers at home, both governors have mentioned that they believe that Donald Trump should be here defending his own record. I just want to remind everybody that he did qualify for this debate, and he did not accept our invitation. Both of you talk about how important it is to protect the U.S. Constitution. 2 years after losing the 2020 election, Donald Trump wrote on social media about his baseless election lies, quote, "A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution," unquote. On that subject, former Vice President Mike Pence has said that on January 6, 2021, Donald Trump put himself over the Constitution. Governor Haley, is there any meaningful difference in how you and Donald Trump view the Constitution?
I mean, look, you take an oath to the Constitution, and I think what you're seeing is Donald Trump basically said that the election was stolen. He went on and on talking about the election being stolen. He said that January 6th was a beautiful day. I think January 6th was a terrible day, and we should never want to see that happen again. And I think we have to always be strong on the fact that, look, we want fair elections, and we saw some discrepancies in those elections in 2020 that should be concerning. That's why I passed voter ID in South Carolina. That's why I think when absentee ballots go out, you should be able to verify signatures. That's why I think ballots need to be counted on election day, and you should get results on election day. But that election, Trump lost it. Biden won that election. And the idea that he's gone and carried this out forever to the point that he's going to continue to say these things to scare the American people are wrong. We've seen a lot of states come together and do more election integrity bills. We need to do more than that. We still have 3 or 4 states that I'm worried about that don't have that. But at the end of the day, I will always defend and fight for the Constitution. That's what we should do as Americans. I think what happened on January 6th was a terrible day, and I think President Trump will have to answer for it.
So just a clarification, Governor. Is there any meaningful difference in how you and Donald Trump view the Constitution?
Well, I mean, I think that he says January 6th was a beautiful day. I don't think it was a beautiful day.
I think it was. As people standing up as a protest. I disagree with Nikki Haley.
What the states did, the fact that he wanted to overturn the elections in D.C., those votes happen at the state level. You don't ever allow in D.C. for those votes to be changed at the federal level.
Governor.
States' rights matter.
Thank you, Governor. Governor DeSantis, is there any meaningful difference in how you and Donald Trump view the Constitution?
My role model for how to do the Constitution is George Washington. He said, "The Constitution is the guide that I will never abandon." And I remember when I took an oath to be an officer in the U.S. Navy, you raise that hand, you put that left hand on the Bible. And it's interesting, the oath doesn't say that you're going to defend the shores of the United States or engage in military conflict. The oath simply says that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. As President of the United States, you will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. You can't just terminate the Constitution. I mean, I know he does, word vomit from time to time on social media, but obviously I will uphold the Constitution. And I think it's fine to criticize Donald Trump, and I know the media brings this up a lot. But you know who else deserves to be criticized? The people that violated the Constitution during COVID to lock people out of schools, to destroy businesses, to force masks on people, to try to force vaccines. I'm going to bring a reckoning to all these agencies, the CDC, the NIH, the FDA. They harm people in this country. And when Dr. Fauci said there was no learning loss for kids, that's a disgrace.
Thank you, Governor.
There's a reckoning coming.
So let's talk about how you view the powers of the presidency, because your opponent, Donald Trump, was in court yesterday for a hearing on presidential immunity. And Governor DeSantis, I'm wondering if you agree with the argument that Donald Trump's lawyer made in court that a president should have immunity for any conduct in office, including, as the judge asked, ordering the assassination of a political rival, unless the president gets impeached and convicted by the Senate for the offense first.
Well, obviously, that attorney gave the case away on that explanation. I think the D.C. Circuit is going to rule against Donald Trump on that issue. I'm not exactly sure what the outer limits are. I don't think it's necessarily been litigated. It's not going to be an issue with me because I'm always going to follow the Constitution, and we're going to uphold the best traditions of the office. And I'm going to be a president you can be proud of. I think it's important that people be able to look to the president and say, hey, that's somebody that's worthy of emulating. And so my wife and I, we just view ourselves to try to do well for our kids and to make sure they're proud of us. And we set a good example. So that's what we would do in that situation. But I think there's a larger issue Republicans have got to think of it. Donald Trump's going to lose that appeal. He's going to end up going to trial in front of a stacked left-wing DC jury of all Democrats. What are the odds that he's going to get through that? And that's not even talking about the validity of the charges. I don't think he gets through that. And so what are we going to do as Republicans in terms of who we nominate for president? If Trump is the nominee, it's going to be about January 6th, legal issues, criminal trials. The Democrats and the media would love to run with that. I'm not running for my issues. I'm running for your issues. We need to make this election a referendum on the failures of Joe Biden, the failures of the Democratic Party, and how we have the formula to engineer a great comeback for this country. That's what I would do.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Haley. Governor Haley, your response?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The question was, do you agree with the argument Donald Trump's lawyer made in court that a president should have immunity for any conduct, including in ordering the assassination of a political rival, unless that president is impeached and convicted by the Senate for that offense first?
No, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we need to use some common sense here. You can't go and kill a political rival and then claim, immunity from a president. I think we have to start doing things that are right. And, Ron said we should have leaders that we can look up to. Well, then stop lying, because nobody's going to want to look up to you if you're lying. But what I do think we need to look at is, what has President Trump done? You look at the last few years, and our country is completely divided. It's divided over extremes. It's divided over hatred. It's divided over the fact that people think that if someone doesn't agree with you, that they're bad. And now we have leaders in our country that decide who's good and who's bad, who's right and who's wrong. That's not what a leader does. What a leader does is they bring out the best in people and get them to see the way forward. That's what we need in our country. We don't need this chaos anymore. We need someone who's going to be a new generational leader that brings sanity back to America.
Thank you so much. The CNN Republican Presidential Debate live from Drake University. We'll be back right after this.
Woo! Woo! I hope they finally finish up. I mean, her voice is starting to grate on me. Yeah. Did you notice DeSantis? He kind of said the idea that in that kangaroo court, and he basically says it's a kangaroo court. They're going to be black and Democrats. They're going to convict him. And do we really want to deal with that as Republicans, or do we want to remove Trump? And I predicted the Republican Party will work to find a way to remove Trump. I get a lot of pushback on that. I don't think that should happen. I'm not advocating that, but I'm still predicting they're going to do that. And we heard it here from DeSantis using that same argument that he should be removed because we need to focus on the issues. The other stuff, this debate, and I'm going to do a recap after the debate is over here, and we'll go over all this stuff. I think they're going to wrap up with hopefully their closing statements, because it's kind of getting boring. There's not much disagreement between them on their positions, really. A little bit on Social Security, I guess, where Nikki wants to raise the age of retirement and DeSantis doesn't. But for the most part, they're all in alignment. It's just them calling each other liars. That, oh, you say this, but then you don't do it. And again, they're probably both right. They both have promised stuff they haven't done. And we'll go through all that. Who's winning the debate? I don't know. I don't see either of them. I'm sure the media is going to say Nikki Haley won, but they already wrote that up before the debate because they're pushing her. I find her very annoying. I have her, instead of responding to the criticism as she should in a debate, in a debate, you shouldn't say, hey, go to my website, DeSantis is a liar.com or whatever. No, that's not how you debate. You express your views, and she just fixates on calling him a liar. So she's not coming across well to me. If I'm neutral, and again, I don't want any of these two people. Both of them are compromised. They are subservient to a foreign power. They made that clear. I think they're not qualified just based on that. So I don't have a dog in this hunt, really. I don't want either of them. But if I'm neutral looking at this, I think, to me anyway, Haley is just coming across as very annoying and kind of screechy. And no, it's not that she's a woman. She just comes across that way. And believe me, DeSantis is not charismatic. He's not a Reagan. He's not a Trump. He's not even a Vivek, who's pretty charismatic. He's kind of like a Mike Dukakis. He's pretty boring, but he does have a fairly good record with Florida. So I think in some ways, I think DeSantis is coming across a little bit stronger in this debate. And she did this weird attack on DeSantis about how he spent all this money on the debate, but he's going down in the polls. Well, that's because she got all this BlackRock money, and all the neocons are now supporting her. So, I mean, let's face it. I mean, she is bought and sold. She is owned. And she's not going to be this independent person. So I think Ron has done a little bit better, but I miss Vivek. I wish he was just the three of them. It'd be so fun to have him here. He would really spice it up, because really they're in agreement with almost every policy. They hate China. They love Israel more than the United States. They have the basic bitch talking points. So we got to cut taxes. We got to reduce regulations, all that nonsense that never really happens. Oh, we're going to reduce the deficit. They both say that, but then they're talking about, like, Nikki Haley wants to go to war with the world. So I don't know how that's going to reduce the deficit. And Ron DeSantis, he wants to increase the size of the Navy. So they're not serious about it. So we will see. Hopefully they wrap it up here. Here we go.
Back to the CNN presidential debate live from Iowa, Drake University. Let's start this with healthcare. Neither of you has released a detailed healthcare plan, so we want to give the voters here some insight into specifics of what you might do as president. Governor Haley, as governor of South Carolina, you chose not to expand Medicaid under Obamacare. 40 states, including this one where we are in Iowa, did expand Medicaid, covering more than 18 million Americans. As president, would you allow those states to keep their expansions in place?
Well, the first thing is we have to look at the fact that how can we be the best country in the world with the most expensive healthcare in the world? And so the way we're going to deal with it is we're going to open it all up, from the hospitals to the insurance companies to the doctors' offices to the pharmaceuticals to the PBMs. Make them have to show us everything. Because right now, I can tell you, we take care of my parents. They're 87 and 90. My dad is in the hospital right now. When my mom was in the hospital, a nurse came up to her to give her a couple of Tylenol. And she said, I don't need them. And she said, honey, you might as well take them because you're going to pay for them anyway. When we got the bill from the hospital, no one talked to us about that. Right now, you have insurance companies and hospitals deciding what it is for us. We're going to take the patient out of the back seat and put them in the driver's seat. We're going to make sure that just like when you get your car fixed and you go and they say, we can give you a temporary fix and it'll cost this much money, or we can give you a permanent fix and it's going to cost that much money. We're going to go and make it transparent so that we can see everything, so that they have to show us their warts. The second thing is we're going to pass tort reform around this country. I did that in South Carolina. Doctors don't give you those 10 tests because they want to. It's for the 90% chance they'll get sued. And then we're going to go and eliminate certificate of need in this country. I did that in South Carolina as well. That basically says if you have a hospital here, you can't have another hospital for X number of miles. They do the same thing for surgical centers, for nursing homes. We're going to put competition back in healthcare so that healthcare is fighting for the patient. That way services go up and costs go down.
Governor Haley, just a 15-second point of clarification. Would you allow the states that accepted Medicaid expansion to keep that?
So the problem with Medicaid is it needs to be sent down as block grants. Governors can best decide how to do that, whether they need to use it towards mental health, whether they need to use it towards support services. Right now, I would send all of that down to the states. The problem is they're only sending a small portion of it. They need to send more of that so that states can better take care of it.
Governor DeSantis, your response on whether you would allow Iowa and the other 39 states who accepted Medicaid expansion to keep it?
Well, I've spoken with a lot of folks here in Iowa, and we need healthcare that's accessible, that's affordable, and that's accountable, and particularly an emphasis on mental health. In every corner of this state, everywhere I've traveled in the campaign, people are really concerned about mental health with the kids in schools, people that are coming out of service to our country, with veterans.
Yeah, but how do you fix mental health? That's a fundamental problem we have. And it's not psychiatrists giving people more drugs. Psychiatrists are extremely left-wing. They're woke. That's a disaster.
Consumers pay less. And I just beat the federal government to allow the state of Florida to buy prescription drugs from Canada, which is 25 cents on the dollar what our prescription drugs cost. I want seniors to be able to do. And then finally, we need to upend this COVID and medical authoritarian regime that we saw going around this country during COVID. It's wrong to force vaxes like the COVID shot and say people are going to lose their jobs. That is not going to ever happen on my watch. Trust
Governor
me.
DeSantis, same
I
15-second
think what you do is you block grant the program and then let states run the way they see fit to do. But I can tell you this. Expanding Medicaid leads to less private coverage. It doesn't necessarily increase access to quality care. I want to actually people get good health care. It's not just about a sheet of paper. If you don't get any good doctors,
Thank you, Governor.
You entitled for that.
Governor DeSantis mentioned mental health. Let's talk about that. There is a mental health crisis in this country. An estimated 58 million Americans suffer from some type of mental illness. Governor Haley, you say the mental health crisis is a, quote, cancer that no one has dealt with. What do you think is causing the crisis, and what would you do to fix it?
Well, I think we saw it exacerbated by COVID. I mean, with the school lockdowns and everything else, we see young people now with more anxiety, stress, and depression than ever before. 1 in 3 people right now suffer from mental health issues. But if treated, they can live a perfectly normal life. The problem is we don't have enough mental health therapists. We don't have enough mental health treatment centers.
I say most of the mental health stuff is bullshit and it's not going to help. It's a waste of money, and we're going to piss away more money on this. I'll probably do a video, really, what's the cause, but it's not spending money on woke social workers sitting on their asses and prescribing you more medicine, antidepressants or whatever.
But right now, we've got to get access to care. And that's, again, why I want to move those federal programs down to the state level, because states know they need more mental health support. They're not getting the dollars to do it. We don't need DC bureaucrats handling that. We need this on the ground so that we can get the mental health centers, get the therapists, and get the help that people need so that they can be healthy again.
Governor DeSantis, you said right here in Iowa this summer that closing mental health institutions, a policy supported by Ronald Reagan, was a mistake. As president, would you restore federal funding to those mental health institutions?
Yes, we need more people in institutionalized settings, unfortunately. But, you know, Governor Haley mentioned, I think correctly, the devastating mental health consequences for these school closures, a lot of things that happened during COVID. I never recalled seeing her out there fighting the fight. I was on the front lines on that. Governor Kim Reynolds was on the front lines on that. We fought back against the biomedical state. We were attacked by the media. We were attacked by the pharmaceutical companies. We were attacked by the left, attacked by Fauci. We stood and we helped people, and Iowa and Florida had the best schools opening in the entire pandemic because we led. That's what you want to do. Now, in terms of mental health, I've run into veterans here in Iowa, and I think we have a significant problem with veterans, particularly the post 9/11 veterans. And we know the stats on suicide. It's really, really sad. And as a fellow veteran, as president, I have to put that issue on the front burner. We can't keep turning a blind eye to what's happening to our vets. It's not going to be done just through the VA, and it can't be done just by pumping people with pharmaceuticals. If a veteran has post-traumatic stress, you need more than just that. So we're going to use the VA to link veterans with resources that are throughout our country. For example, in Florida, we have an organization that trains service dogs to be able to be paired with veterans with post-traumatic stress. They understand the symptoms, they mitigate it, and you know what? The suicide rate is close to zero as a result of that. We got to think bigger than these bureaucracies, and we've got to be there for our vets and their mental health.
Thank you, Governor. Turning to the topic of climate, 2023 was the hottest year ever recorded on Earth, and Americans are already feeling the impact. Just yesterday, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reported that the U.S. experienced 28 weather and climate-related disasters that cost at least $1 billion last year, another record. Governor DeSantis here in Florida, Governor DeSantis here in Iowa, massive flooding has left farmers.
This is all bullshit. Anytime there's a flood, they blame it on climate change. The hottest temperature in 10,000 years. They only did temperatures the past 160 years. It's all a fucking lie. It's up there with that other event I can't talk about on YouTube.
Cutting carbon emissions.
So on day one as president, we take Biden's Green New Deal, we tear it up and we throw it in the trash can. It is bad for this country. We have to have reliable energy. And here's the thing, you know, they talk about, Joe Biden has said that global warming is worse than a nuclear war. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, gee, John Kerry hasn't given up his private jet. Obama hasn't given up his Martha's Vineyard seaside mansion. I haven't seen Biden do anything to hold China accountable except making sure that Hunter gets his money. So these guys talk out of one side of their mouth and then they behave in another way. And I think that's wrong. But I also think that those policies would devastate communities, particularly here in Iowa. I mean, for example, he wants to mandate electric vehicles. That's going to be more costly. I think the car companies would go bankrupt, but it's going to hurt liquid fuels, which is very, very important. You're going to end up having rolling blackouts if they kneecap reliable energy production in this country. Florida's had a massive decline in emissions. Wasn't because of a single mandate. It was because of innovation, because a lot of natural gas has replaced coal. We do have market-based solar, and it's a complement, but we cannot walk away from reliable energy. And I think about, here's what the left wants to do. They want to take away your freedom, and they want you to pay more for everything. We need you to pay less for energy, and we need to make sure people can innovate. We cannot have these mandates, and they'll be gone the day I'm president.
So, Governor, just a point of clarification, 15 seconds. Recent research at the University of Iowa ties these floods in Iowa to the rise in greenhouse gases.
And here's the thing,
yeah, and it's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's all political.
Do anything to deal with this underlying cause.
Innovate. And here's the thing. China is building 2 coal plants a week. You can do everything Biden wants to do, and you're going to have way more of what China's increasing it. Our nose to spite our face. China is the problem here, and so hold them accountable.
Thank you, Governor.
Don't hold the American people.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Haley, as president, would you do anything to deal with the underlying cause of the floods and other climate disasters, which scientists agree requires cutting carbon emissions?
I mean, first of all, regardless of what party, everybody wants to have clean air, clean water. They want a world that they can pass on to their kids that's going to be healthy and all of that. But it's how do we do that? I think the first thing we have to understand is you don't deal in extremes. When I was at the United Nations, the reason I took us out of the Paris Climate Agreement was because President Obama had put all these mandates down on our businesses, but they didn't do anything to hold China and India to account. Those are the 2 countries we have to really go to if we care about the environment, that we go and make them be held accountable. The second thing is we'll roll back all of Biden's green subsidies because they're misplaced. Rather than putting anything towards innovation on what we can do on nuclear fusion and other things that reduce emissions, which there are things out there, to go and have everybody have to drive an electric car by 2035. That's not even smart. One, because, which by the way, Ron took Biden's stimulus money and did charging stations all throughout Florida. I wouldn't have taken the stimulus money. But what that does is basically we don't have the infrastructure. And I'm not just talking about charging stations. Electric vehicles are heavy. Our roads and bridges wouldn't be able to handle that if we did that because they're heavy in weight. And so we have to be smart about the way we do that. Not to mention 70% of the batteries in electric cars are made in China. So Biden gave this massive windfall.
It's amazing how they just keep pivoting towards China. China's the problem of all our problems.
And do it the right way, not in extremes.
Thank you. I want to turn to the issue of crime. The majority of Americans describe crime in the U.S. as either extremely or very serious. Recent data show crime rates falling but some violent crime rates do remain high. Governor Haley, former President Trump suggested that he might try to stop violent crime by deploying U.S. troops to Democratic-run states and cities, something he could potentially do under the Insurrection Act. Is that something that you would do as president?
What I would do is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. It's hugely important that we do that. That's where we're seeing a lot of crime. But the second thing is, our law enforcement is demoralized right now, because if they go and they arrest someone for having a stolen gun, it's demoralizing when they go through all that effort, put their lives at risk, and then you turn around and let that criminal go the very next day. Prosecutors need to prosecute according to the law, and we've got to start holding them accountable. When we bring law and order back to our cities, then that's when they'll be safe. You don't do it by defunding the police, and you don't do it by just praising the police. You do it by having their backs, making sure we passed the first body camera bill in the country in South Carolina to make sure that law enforcement felt like they could do their job without feeling threatened about them doing their job. But we have to have prosecutors prosecuting. We have to defund sanctuary cities. We have to get these stolen guns and drugs off the street. And the only way we can do that is when we empower law enforcement.
Governor
Now,
DeSantis.
I just think, that quote from the former President Trump is a little bit rich, because he was president during the worst rioting in the modern history of this country, the BLM riots in the summer of 2020. When I saw that happening in Minneapolis, in Florida, I called out the National Guard. We had state law enforcement deployed. We said, you're not burning down our cities in this state. And you know what? It didn't happen. He sat in the White House and tweeted law and order, but he did nothing to ensure law and order. As your president, I will never let our cities burn. You have every right to stop this runaway rioting as president. In fact, you have a duty. Now, Nikki Haley and I have a disagreement on the BLM stuff too, because she tweeted during this period of time that the death of George Floyd should be, quote, personal and painful for each and every American. But people in Iowa had nothing to do with that, or Florida or South Carolina. She was virtue signaling to the left. She was accepting the narrative, and she was trying to impress people who were never going to like us. I never bought into going after the police. We back the blue to the hilt in the state of Florida, and we're have lower crime as a result of that.
Thank you, Governor Haley.
It's interesting that he did that. He put a tweet that was very similar, but let me tell you why I did that. First of all, we had one of the worst two racial shootings. We had the shooting of Walter Scott, who was shot 7 times in the back by a dirty cop. We had a horrific shooting at a church where a white supremacist came in and killed 9 amazing souls. BLM, all of that, we never had to deal with riots. We never had to call in the National Guard, Ron, because when we had both of those shootings, we were able to pull people together. We didn't have riots, we had vigils. We didn't have protests, we had prayer. We brought people together. When I said that about George Floyd, when we turned around and had the worst shooting in a religious place that we had seen in this country, not only did I pass the first body camera bill in the country and keep our state together, not only did I move to bring the Confederate flag down, we came together as a state in prayer, and we had no division, no riots, no anything. We didn't need the National Guard.
Thank you, Governor.
Because a leader knows how to bring out the best in their people.
Thank you, Governor. So you have been sparring on the campaign trail for months. We've seen some vicious attack ads going back and forth, and tonight we have had a very lively debate. On a different note, Governor DeSantis, let me ask you, what do you admire about Governor Haley?
Well, look, I mean, I think that, at the United Nations, I did think that she spoke out strongly on some key issues, and I appreciated that. I also appreciate the state of South Carolina. My wife is a College of Charleston graduate. Her parents lived there for many, many years. And so it is a wonderful state. There's a lot of great people there. And I think to be able to have been governor there is a great achievement. And I really appreciate everyone I've gotten to meet in South Carolina.
Governor Haley, what do you admire about Governor DeSantis?
I think he's been a good governor.
Okay. So we're going to squeeze in another quick break, and we'll be right back with more from the Republican debates here at Drake University.
Man, does this ever end? Hopefully they wrap it up here. You notice she listed as accomplishment removing the Confederate flag, like the Confederate flag had anything to do with the Dylan Roof shooting. And she buys into the narrative that's white supremacists attacking blacks. When if you look at the statistics, it's overwhelmingly blacks that attack whites in this country. That's FBI statistics. That's just reality. So she buys into the woke, fake, blood libel narrative, and fuck her on that. I mean, really, fuck her. This isn't her country. How dare she try to take away our flag? And this is how she thinks. You know, Nikki Haley is, you might as well go for Hillary Clinton. There's really no difference there. And Ron DeSantis, he did say some good things about, he did stop the rioting and he did bring that up. I think that was pretty good. And it was weird how they blamed China for all, you know, the climate change stuff. It's really bizarre. They worship Israel and they blame China for everything. So yeah, that was this segment. I think they're going to wrap up the next segment. That's kind of my feeling is what they're going to do here. And so let me see. I got a couple other super chats I'm going to get in right now. So I got that. Someone on the rant, and thank you for the rant. That's on Rumble. Calamardo, $10. Yay. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you guys too. This year's going to be wild and we're going to cover it together. We're going to be a community and we're going to go over it together. So thank you so much. And I got some other super chats. Let's see here. Ryan Leclerc, can't wait to work into my 70s. Laugh my ass off. Yeah, it's funny when it comes to Americans. It's like you got to work till you're about dead. But when it comes to Ukraine, oh, we're going to pay for your pensions. Israel, we're going to pay for your health care. We're going to pay for everything. Blank check. Americans, screw you. K-Max McDonald's, $5. Rams, should this be the last GOP debate? Are they unbearable at this point? Well, I think this is the last GOP debate for this campaign cycle, unless I'm wrong. I think this is it. In 4 years, I don't know. Who knows if the GOP will be around? The country will be very different at that point. But I do think this is a GOP, last GOP debate. It's been kind of, I consider, a boring debate because they agree on everything, except they call each other a liar all the time. That's the only thing they do. But they kind of agree with all their policies. There's not much difference there, a little bit. And we'll, after the show, if you have any super chats or any other comments, I'll read those. And then we're just going to go through. I have a recap. I'm taking notes. So I'm just going to recap real quick what I think of this, how I would answer it, and my thoughts of their answers. But yeah, the debate without Vivek it's just boring. Without Vivek or Trump, you realize how boring these debates are. And yeah, that's where we are right now. I don't know if this debate is really going to swing any voters. Really, I don't see it. I don't see them differentiating each other from each other. DeSantis is who he is. He's not very charismatic. Nikki Haley, she comes across very screeching, you know, the power bitch woman, wants war with the world. And that's a little wearing thin. And she's proud about taking down the Confederate flag, the heritage, because this isn't her country. Her parents came here from India. She has no connection to the soil here. So yeah, but I wouldn't vote for either of them. I mean, when they talked about Israel, it's clear that they do not represent Americans. They're not interested in representing Americans. So in my opinion, both are disqualified. But if I had to choose between the two, probably DeSantis is a little less obnoxious than Haley. But don't get me wrong, he's not his own man. He's still controlled by the neocons. He's made that clear. So, all right, here we go.
Area, or whether it's the fact that we've met owners of bakeries and small businesses, you know, every one of them knows that we can't go through 4 more years of chaos. And if it's Donald Trump, there will be 4 more years of chaos. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. And we can't go through another nail biter of an election. And if you look at the polls right now, going against Joe Biden, in every one of those head-to-head polls, Ron doesn't beat Joe Biden. Trump is head-to-head. On a good day, he might be up by 2 points. I defeat Biden by 17 points. That's bigger than the presidency. That's House, that's Senate, that's governorships, that's down to school board. That's a mandate to get our spending under control and get inflation down. That's a mandate to get our kids reading again and go back to the basics in education.
No, it just says that you appeal to the left. So the left are happy to support you over Joe Biden because you're not different than Joe Biden. That's all it means, Nikki.
That we can be proud of. We can do this. I know we can do this. If you will join with me in this movement, if you join with me in this fight, I promise you our best days are to come. God bless you.
Governor DeSantis.
Well, it's been great to visit all 99 counties here in Iowa. I've been able to meet so many friends and really learn about some of the best of America. Iowa's votes do not need to be corrected by any other state. You all know what you're doing. And we have an opportunity on Monday to really change the course of history. Donald Trump's running for his issues. Nikki Haley's running for her donors' issues. I'm running for your issues, your family's issues, and solely to turn this country around. I'm the only one running that's delivered on 100% of my promises, and I'm the only one running that has beaten the left time and time again, from the teachers' unions to Fauci to the Democratic Party. We need to run under the banner of bold colors that are putting the American people first. We can't run under a banner of pale pastels of the warmed over corporatism, the likes of which is practiced by Nikki Haley. Freedom is on the ballot. Decline is a choice. We have it within our power to fix this country and to turn it around. I am asking for your support in the Iowa caucus on Monday, January 15th. I'll be a president that you can be proud of, and I promise you this, I will get the job done, and I will not let you down. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Our thanks to Governor Santos and Governor Haley. Governor DeSantis and Governor Haley, thank you so much, both of you, for being here tonight. Thanks to our audience, to our host, Drake University. For Dan Abash and the whole CNN team, I'm Jake Tapper.
All right. We'll do some post-debate. I took notes. And if you guys have questions, want to talk about it, I'm not going to belabor this. I'm going to go through this pretty quick. But general impressions, they didn't disagree on many policies, again, because they're pretty similar. Most of the debate was them calling each other liars was the debate. And Nikki Haley, go to DeSantisLies.com. She kept repeating this like she was autistic or had Asperger's or what is it? Tourette's syndrome. Tourette's, where you always say the bad word. She just kept saying that. That was her coaching. And that's not the way to handle the debate. I didn't see many innovative solutions from either of them. When it started out with the economy, they were all kind of warmed over Reaganism, which is, we got to have lower taxes, less deregulations, and that type of vein. And I get it, and that's not bad. And DeSantis talks about the flat tax, income tax. He might as well talk about unicorns. It's not going to happen. And so what they're talking about, lowering the deficit, but it doesn't really jive with the other stuff because they want all these wars. They want to increase the size of the military. So it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. When it came to illegal immigrants, so when it came to the economy, they're basically the same. When it came to illegal aliens, I thought Ron was a little bit better because Nikki didn't like the term illegal alien. They both want to deport these people, but I don't trust either of them. But Ron is probably a little stronger on that, so I give him a plus on that. Ukraine, again, Nikki is for fighting this war forever, and Ukraine's a dictatorship. It's not freedom, but she's on board with that. Ron is hedging his bets a little. He wants to wrap up this war because the real threat is the Chinese, and we'll get into that. But Ron's right. We don't have enough resources to continue to piss away money. Whereas Nikki Haley, oh, we have all limited money to spend on Israel and Ukraine. That's not an issue. When it came to Israel, Ron actually supported ethnic cleansing. That's pretty shocking. He says their business. If they want to basically genocide the people, he's okay with that, even though we're paying for it. Nikki said that America needs Israel. Israel doesn't need us. That's just astounding how we ever existed as a country. And she said she would give Israel anything they want. They have a black check. Based on both of their responses, they are not running for the American president. They are being picked by Tel Aviv. They should both are disqualified. I wouldn't vote for either of them because of that. When it comes to Iran, Nikki wants war with Iran. Ron wants war with Iran because Israel wants that. So of course they're going to do that. When it comes to the role of government, Ron said he had the fight about Disney because of their trans bullshit with children. And Nikki, she kind of flip-flopped on that about the whole trans issue. So I think Ron was a little stronger on that. On education, the moderators, they brought up, he's banning books from the libraries. No, he's just not providing little kids homosexual pornography to read in class. DeSantis, I think, was a little bit better on school choice. So that was good. Nikki Haley, she couldn't explain why South Carolina was near the bottom in education. I can explain it, but she can't explain why. China, they have to have someone to hate. So China's the country they all hate because the whole Russia thing in Ukraine's falling apart. So they pivot. Everything that goes wrong is because of China. They're subverting our country. I think it's a little projection because they don't want to go over who's really subverting our country. DeSantis wants to build a bigger Navy. Again, we don't have money for that. And of course, Nikki hates China. Social Security, I give this to DeSantis. He's not going to make any changes. As DeSantis rightly said, this wasn't a welfare program. We put money into it. There was a surplus. The bastards in Congress, they spent our savings. Fuck them. They should go to jail. He was right on that. Nikki wants to cut Social Security, wants to raise the age limit when people are dying even younger. She would never dare do that with Israel, by the way. Abortion, they talked about how Trump has attacked abortion. I guess he's a little queasy about that. I think Ron blames the fathers again. And Nikki said we can't use judgment. Of course, we got to use judgment. January 6th, Nikki said January 6th was a terrible day. I disagree with that. Vivek would have been in there saying he's going to pardon nonviolent protesters. It was a protest. It was less violent than BLM anti-fall riots. When they talked about the power of the presidency, it was interesting. DeSantis basically said it's going to be a kangaroo court, but because he will be found guilty, the Republicans need to remove him. I've said that's what they plan to do. He kind of spilled the beans here. Healthcare. They didn't really have a lot to say. Nikki brought up this, we need more capitalism to solve it. And they both went on this mental health care bit, which is bullshit. I should do videos about it. But you're not going to solve our mental health care problems by giving money to, because healthcare workers or social workers, they're all shit lib SJWs. That's not going to fix the problem. Climate change, DeSantis was good on that. He's going to tear up the Paris Accords, and then he blamed China. In crime, they were both pretty good, saying that we can't let the criminals go. That was good. But then Nikki said, oh, but all the evil racial shootings, never mind. It's mostly black against white. She just brings up like the ADL, SPLC, the blood libel, because she doesn't identify with us. So she lies about us, that it's somehow a white attacking black problem. And because of that, they got to tear down the Confederate flag. She bragged about that. And in conclusion, her big thing is, based on the polls, she has the best chance to beat Biden. And I concede, I think that's true. because she's basically a Democrat. And Democrats, they are fine having Haley in there because she's a liberal. She's not going to be any different than Joe Biden. She will just have an R by her name instead of a D. And I think a lot of Democrats would be fine having her in, woman of color, instead of having this senile old white man that has a good chance of dying, honestly, in this next presidency. So that was kind of the wrap of the whole debate. Will it make much of a difference? I don't think so. I think both the debate was pretty boring, and I don't see any change with that. So, and let me just make sure I got everything. $20, Rich Mountains. Good job, Bill. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Ramsey. Thank you, Rich Mountain. I really do appreciate that. And thank you guys, because I couldn't do this without you guys. You guys make it fun, all the commentary, commenting all this. Again, I'm of all these people, I can't support DeSantis. I wish I wanted to support DeSantis, but when he pledged allegiance to another power over America, I can't do that. He's violated he talks about the Constitution, but both Haley and DeSantis put another foreign country first, an alien power over us. They violated the Constitution. I can't support them. I miss Vivek. He was great. I miss him being here. I miss Trump. Trump is a lot better. But again, DeSantis spilled the beans. They're going to convict Trump and they're going to work to remove him from the Republican Party. I do not advocate that happening, but I do predict that's what will happen. Guys, it's been so much fun. We will have the Ramsey Paul show tomorrow. We'll go over a little bit more about this and we'll see the other reaction. I'm sure the shit libs are going to say Nikki had a glorious win. I don't see how, but they had that written before the debate. I don't think I slightly prefer DeSantis on some of the points, but they both are disqualified based on they don't put America first. They put Israel first. That's a disqualification. So, but if on the other issues, DeSantis was a little bit better for what's that worth? Not a whole lot. They both will betray us once they get into power, either DeSantis or Nikki Haley. They're not going to change anything. DeSantis is not going to get a flat tax. Nikki Haley's not going to deport the illegals. We may get more wars. And at this point, though, the country's pretty much in decline. I don't know if anyone can save it at this point. It's kind of like the Titanic. You hit the iceberg, it's going under. I guess you can vote on a new captain, but does it really matter at this point? We need radical changes, and I didn't see any innovative ideas from these people. They're kind of stuck in the past. It's really sad. So, but it's fun to having you here, and we'll go through this. This is the last GOP debate. We will cover the debates this year because this is an election year. If Biden, they're able to pump him full of drugs to debate either Trump, DeSantis, or Haley. Probably be one of the three, unless at the convention they have a wild card. I know Z-Man thinks maybe that guy from Virginia, Youngkin, may be a wild card. I don't know. I don't think so. My prediction will probably be Haley will be the nominee. Sadly, I won't be interested in voting for her. So you get Joe Biden. You either get Joe Biden or Joe Biden in heels. That's your choice. So. Yeah, I guess I'd rather have just Joe Biden. It doesn't matter at that point. Well, I mean, what the hell difference does it make? So anyway, guys, thank you. It's kind of late. I'll get some sleep here, but thank you, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.